Chapter 1042. Ever since the news that Li Wangyu didn't die in the desert and escaped alive spread, Su Chongqing couldn't help but hold her children and cry bitterly. Even though they hadn't found Li Wangyu's exact whereabouts, Su Chongqing firmly believed that her husband, Li Wangyu, would definitely return home. As this news spread back to Chang'an, it also brought some trouble to Pai Lupi. First of all, there was the issue of Chang'el's identity. Since ancient times, Wuxia had a system of one husband and one wife and many concubines. It was the same for the emperor and the commoners. So even Li Wangyu was no exception. Back then, Pai Lupi nodded and agreed that Li Wangyu could imitate a Huang Nuing and have two wives. However, Pai Lupi didn't have the final say on this matter. Even if he was the emperor, this kind of thing that violated Wuxia's ethics and morals would definitely be criticized to death by those old masters. Not to mention other things, Wei Zheng alone would definitely be fiercely opposed to this kind of thing. In addition to the issue of one husband and one wife, Chang'el had to marry Li Wangyu. What was more troublesome was that Wuxia didn't allow people with the same surname to marry. Not only did Chang'el and Li Wangyu have the same surname, but they were also relatives. They were also master and disciple. If any of these rules were violated, those old masters would go crazy. Moreover, these were three red lines that couldn't be touched. Therefore, if nothing happened to Li Wangyu, it was actually impossible for Pai Lupi to marry Chang'el even if he wanted to. If Pai Lupi insisted on doing things his own way and used his authority as the emperor to force an edict, there would be a lot of trouble in the imperial court. At least, it wouldn't be as easy as the plague of locusts in Zhengguan's second year. The aristocratic families led by the 5 surnames and 7 hopes would definitely not let go of this opportunity to criticize Pai Lupi from the height of morality. However, coincidentally, when Li Wangyu led the army to the west to conquer the western region, he was accidentally buried in the desert. It could be said that with Li Wangyu's death, his identity became very sensitive. To go to war for the country and die in an accident, that was a martyr, a hero of the country. Under these circumstances, Princess Chang'el's choice to marry of a lower status became a beautiful story. Even the stubborn Wei Zheng had to pinch his nose and accept it. After all, although Li Wangyu had sacrificed his life for the country, Princess Chang'el's insistence on marrying him, although it was unreasonable, it was the friendship of the imperial family. And no one could say a single word. In any case, Li Wangyu was no longer in this world. Although this marriage was unreliable, no one jumped out to seek trouble for themselves. But who could have thought Li Zest? When the news reached Chang'an, everyone was surprised and looked at each other. They did not know how to deal with the fact that Li Wangyu had 2 concubines. To impeach Li Wangyu? There didn't seem to be any reason. After all, when Chang'el married into the Prince of Qin's household, Li Wangyu was still trapped in the desert. He didn't know about this matter, so how could he be blamed? Should Chang'el and Li Wangyu divorce? These words were not pleasant to hear. Since ancient times, there had been a saying in China, it's better to tear down 10 temples than to ruin a marriage. Ruining a marriage was a grave sin. Regardless of whether it was the aristocratic families or the scholarly old masters, no one dared to write such a memorial to Pai Lupi. They would be spurned by the common people. For a moment, everyone was in a difficult position. Another problem for Pai Lupi was Li Wangyu's title. At that time, in his grief, Pai Lupi had given the order to posthumously confer Li Wangyu the title of imperial prince, giving his former title to Li Wangyu. But now that Li Wangyu was still alive, this matter was somewhat inappropriate. After all, Li Wangyu and his father, Li Zhou, had already been ordered by Pai Lupi to reinstate them into the imperial family by the Zhongzheng temple. What was more troublesome was the title of Prince of Qin. Prince of Qin was Pai Lupi's title before he ascended the throne after the Xuanwu Gate incident. To a certain extent, Prince of Qin represented Pai Lupi. This was also the reason why in the Tang dynasty, no one had been conferred the title of Prince of Qin except for Pai Lupi. But now that Li Wangyu was still alive, this title was rather inappropriate. Pai Lupi had also figured it out at this time. He was somewhat regretful and felt that he had been too hasty at that time. He wanted to confer the title of Li Wangyu again, but this matter had already been issued and the imperial envoy had heard of it. Li Er also wanted to save face. He was a little embarrassed to do this kind of thing that changed orders all the time. In short, the news that Li Wangyu was still alive made Pai Lupi very happy, but it also brought him a lot of trouble. However, although there was news of Li Wangyu at that time, the Tang army had not yet found Li Wangyu. Therefore, although this matter was rather troublesome, it was not urgent. The most important thing was to find Li Wangyu's exact whereabouts. That was the most important thing. In the 5th month of the 7th year of Zhengguan, several secret agents of the 100 Cavalry Department rushed back from the western regions and finally brought good news to Pai Lupi. Mi Tua, Cheng Chumo, and the others led 10,000 Tang cavalry and rescued Prince of Qin Li Wangyu in the desert. What the secret agents of the 100 Cavalry Department brought back, other than Mi Tuo's memorial, there was also Li Wangyu's handwritten memorial for Pai Lupi and a letter for Su Chongqing. This was what Li Wangyu hurriedly wrote down before he led the Tang army into the grassland to pursue Xieli and let Mi Tuo order people to bring it back to Chang'an. In the memorial presented to Pai Lupi, Li Wangyu explained his whereabouts in the past year and the reason why he led the troops to pursue Shui Yantuo's wolf cavalry. Pai Lupi carefully read this short memorial several times. He was both happy and angry. He was happy because he found Li Wangyu, but angry because he targeted Shui Yantuo and the barbarian Khan. He sent Tang Songling to Shui Yantuo, wanting to borrow Shui Yantuo's power to search for Li Wangyu. Who would have thought that Shui Yantuo's people actually ate the bear's heart and leopard's guts and actually dared to pursue Li Wangyu? If it were not for the coincidence that Mi Tuo and Cheng Chumo led the army and appeared, Li Wangyu would probably have lost his life in the desert. How could this not make Pai Lupi angry? If it were not for Cheng Yaojin leading 150,000 troops and still opening up territory in the western regions, Pai Lupi almost wanted to order people to kill their way into the grassland and capture that bastard Khan back to Chang and to interrogate him in front of him. Although Pai Lupi could not send out the army to pursue Shui Yantuo, he immediately ordered the Tang army guarding the Great Wall passes from Ping to Luku to immediately leave the pass and head to the grassland north of the desert to meet up with Prince of Qin Li Wangyu. After dealing with official business, Pai Lupi looked at the letter on the table that Li Wangyu asked the 100 Horsemen Department to bring back. He could not help but laugh and scold. This bastard boy. He only knows how to be sentimental. Pai Lupi could not help but think so. Li Wangyu's memorial to Pai Lupi was only 2 short pieces of paper. As for the letter he wrote to Su Chongqing, although Pai Lupi did not open it, he knew how much it was just by looking at the bulging stack of letters sealed in the fire seal. Empress Zhongsun also received the news and hurried to the legislative hall. Erlang, I heard that there is news from the western regions. Zio, he has been found? Pai Lupi smiled and nodded. Yes, Mi Tuo and Cheng Chumo found that bastard in the desert. Dao Zhu bless. Empress Zhongsun also heaved a sigh of relief and then asked, Erlang, when will he return to Chang'an? Has he already set out? Ever since Chang'e married into the Duke of Qin's residence, the relationship between Li Wangyu and Empress Zhongsun changed from uncle and nephew to mother-in-law and son-in-law. Li Wangyu was originally liked by Empress Zhongsun. Moreover, the more a mother-in-law looks at a son-in-law, the more she likes him. Set out my ass. This scoundrel brat, after sending a letter back, he himself brought 10,000 soldiers and horses, charging into Mabe to find Xieli to settle the score. Li Er replied exasperatedly, then handed Li Wangyu's memorial to Empress Zhongsun. Empress Zhongsun hurriedly finished reading the memorial but also frowned. This child is really mischievous. Shui Yantuo has 200,000 armored soldiers, how can he be so reckless? Erlang, quickly send troops to Mabe to meet up with Zio. Don't let anything happen again. Empress Zhongsun didn't care about her habit of never getting involved in politics. After reading the memorial, she immediately spoke and had Pai Lupi send troops to meet up with Xianxia. Pai Lupi didn't know whether to laugh or cry at his wife's behavior. He even felt a bit of jealousy in his heart. Humph, Guanyin maid, don't worry about that bastard. I have my own arrangements for these matters. Alright, since there's nothing going on today, how about we make a trip to Hu County? We will personally deliver the letter to that bastard, Pai Lupi said and waved the letter that Li Wangyu had written to Su Chongqing. Empress Zhongsun smiled and nodded, naturally not objecting. Ever since Chang'e married into the Duke of Qin's residence, as a mother, she couldn't often see Chang'e, so she naturally missed her. Adding on the great news that came today, she had long wanted to make a trip to Dingzhou village in Hu County. Chapter 1043. Pai Lupi's imperial entourage and Empress Zhongxuan's phoenix carriage, escorted by numerous bodyguards, suddenly arrived at Dingzhou village. Naturally, this caused the entire Duke of Qin's household to fall into chaos. Su Chongqing did not dare to be negligent. Leading Princess Chang'e, Aphrodite, and Perrin, he hurriedly went to the gates to receive them. Without waiting for Su Chongqing and company to greet them, Pai Lupi smiled and waved his hand. Dispense with the formalities, dispense with the formalities. Today, we and Guanyin have come to visit. This is an extremely joyous occasion. Su Chongqing's beautiful eyes could not help but brighten. Raising his eyes, he looked at Pai Lupi. Filled with anticipation, he was also worried that he had guessed incorrectly. Very conflicted, he asked, Your Imperial Majesty, is there news of Wangyu? Worthy of being the goddess of wealth of my Tang dynasty. Truly intelligent, you guessed correctly. Pai Lupi laughed heartily and nodded his head. Hearing these words, Su Chongqing's body could not help but sway. Empress Zhongsun walked forward with a smile, extending an arm to support Su Chongqing. Chongqing, Mi Tua, Cheng Chumo, and the others have already found Zio in the desert. He is currently safe and sound. You can be at ease. Over this past year, it has been hard on you. Today, the clouds have finally parted and the moon has seen the light of day. It can be considered that the faithful are not disappointed. Her words caused Su Chongqing to be unable to restrain his tears from streaming down his cheeks. Everyone from the Duke of Qin's household, including Princess Chang'e, also began to shed tears. The old housekeeper, Li Heng, once again began to bawl, causing those who saw him to feel sad. Pai Lupi glared at them. Enough, this is a joyous occasion. What are you all crying for? Chang'e, come to father's side. Don't cry any more. In a few days, your husband will return. If you cry until your body is damaged, father will find that boy Zio to settle accounts. Chang'e promptly used her sleeve to wipe away the tears at the corners of her eyes. With reddened eyes, she acted spoiled towards Pai Lupi. Father, how can you blame husband? What does this matter have to do with husband? It's really the case of a girl speaking for an outsider. Are you speaking for your husband? Alright. Father has brought you good news today. Hurry up and prepare some good food and wine for father and mother to express your gratitude. Pai Lupi doted on his eldest daughter, Chang'e, the most. What he said just now was just to tease her. Su Chongqing hurriedly ordered Li Heng to prepare a banquet. He then respectfully welcomed Pai Lupi and Empress Zhongsun into the mansion and sat down. Not to mention how excited Su Chongqing was when he saw Li Wangyu's handwritten letter, and how jubilant the Qin mansion was. At this time, in Xianxua's court on Mount Yu military governor, there was a tense atmosphere of mutual hostility. Xieli Dao's army of 50,000 was defeated by the Tang army's 10,000 armored cavalry in one strike. They fled toward the north with the wind in their eyes. Naturally, with the fastest speed, this matter was sent back to the imperial court of Overseer Mountain by fast horse. After the barbarian Khan and Tang Songling parted on bad terms last time, they both hoped that their son would bring him good news. As long as Xianxua's army could defeat the Tang army, he could vent his anger in front of Tang Songling. However, no matter how much the barbarian Khan calculated, he did not expect that his army of 50,000 would not be able to defeat the Tang army's 10,000 cavalry. After knowing this matter, the barbarian Khan directly smashed his most beloved jade cup in the king's tent and took out the scimitar at his waist, cutting the furnishings in the king's tent into a mess. Even the guards beside him were dragged out by the barbarian Khan because of some small matter and were directly trampled to death by the galloping horses. For a time, everyone in the king's tent was as silent as cicadas in winter. They did not dare to breathe loudly, fearing that they would cause the Khan to die in vain. After venting for a while, the barbarian Khan once again ordered people to summon Tang Songling. Assistant Minister Tang, that Tang dynasty's king of Qin has gone too far. Does the Tang dynasty really want to make me, Shui Yantua, an enemy? I, Shui Yantua, respect the Tang dynasty, but that does not mean that I, Shui Yantua, am weak. Tang Songling was at Overseer Mountain and had lost contact with the outside world. He did not know what had happened in the grassland. The last time he met with the barbarian Khan, he found out that Shui Yantua had sent 50,000 troops to deal with King of Qin Li Wangyu. Although he did not admit defeat, he was still worried. These days, he had sent out people to gather information in Shui Yantua's palace but to no avail. It would be a lie to say that Tang Songling was not worried about this. He could only pray in his heart that King of Qin Li Wangyu would retreat and lead 10,000 Tang troops out of Mo Bay safely. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to complete his task. Who would have thought that the barbarian Khan would suddenly summon him and spit at him furiously the moment they met? Tang Songling was surprised, but he was also overjoyed. Without a doubt, Shui Yantua and his men must have suffered a great loss for the barbarian Khan to lose his composure. He did not know what the king of Qin had done with the 10,000 troops, but there was no doubt that they must have taught Shui Yantua a lesson. That was why the barbarian Khan was so angry. Tang Songling could not help but laugh. Barbarian Khan, I have already said this. Have you forgotten your identity? As a subject of His Majesty, how dare you say such disgraceful words? Making an enemy of the Tang dynasty? Is Shui Yantua worthy? You! How dare you! The barbarian Khan was like an enraged bull. His eyes were red as he pulled out a machete from his waist and placed it on Tang Songling's neck. If you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Barbarian Khan, if you are willing to bury Shui Yantua with me, just cut off the machete in your hand. If I blink, I will give my head to Barbarian Khan to kick like a ball. Tang Songling was not afraid. Instead, he stretched his neck forward. It had to be said that the officials of the early Tang dynasty were all martial artists and had a sense of pride in their bones. It was even more so when they faced the barbarians of the grassland. The Tang dynasty was their strongest backing. Those who offend the emissary of the Tang dynasty will be killed. If you are disrespectful, I will destroy your country. Tang Songling's father, Tang Jian, used himself as bait to lure the Turks. He made great contributions to the Tang dynasty by defeating the Turks and capturing Xieli Khan alive. In history, Wang Xuanzi, who single-handedly destroyed a country, single-handedly destroyed central India and wrote the legend of the Tang dynasty. The barbarian Khan wanted to threaten the emissary of the Tang dynasty, but he had made a mistake. Tang Songling's words put the barbarian Khan in an awkward position. He panted heavily and the veins on his hand that was holding the machete bulged. He did not care about anything else and directly cut down the Tang emissary. In the end, the barbarian Khan's fear of the Tang dynasty stopped him from cutting down with his machete. Good. Since Assistant Minister Tang is not afraid of death, I will fulfill your wish. I will show you how I defeat the Tang dynasty. Men! Gather all the troops and I will personally lead the troops to battle. Assistant Minister Tang, you will go with me. The barbarian Khan finally put away his machete, but he did not plan to let Tang Songling go. Tang Songling shrugged indifferently. He did not care about the barbarian Khan's anger. He was just curious about what the Qin king Li Wangyu had done. Why did he feel like he had pierced through the sky of the northern desert grassland? It was not a secret that Shui Yintua had a total of 200,000 soldiers. It was unbelievable that the barbarian Khan had gathered all of Shui Yintua's soldiers just to deal with Li Wangyu's 10,000 soldiers. Could it be? Could it be that Shui Yintua's 50,000 soldiers were annihilated by the Qin king? This sudden thought shocked Tang Songling himself, but he also felt that it was too unrealistic. Tang Songling naturally did not expect that although his guess was not correct, it was not far from the truth. After Li Wangyu defeated Xieli Luo's army of 50,000, he pursued relentlessly. Xieli only had 30,000 to 40,000 soldiers and he was already scared out of his wits. He did not dare to go against the Tang army and could only escape to the north. However, when Shui Yintua's army was defeated, most of the horses were seized by the Tang army during the chaos. This caused Shui Yintua's army to not have enough horses. At least half of Shui Yintua's cavalry only had one man and one horse. Under such circumstances, how could they outrun the Tang army on the grassland? Therefore, after more than 10 days of pursuit, Xieli's 30,000 to 40,000 soldiers were left with less than 20,000 soldiers. The rest of the cavalry were left behind due to the lack of horses. They were either captured by the Tang army or killed by the blades of the Tang army. Li Wangyu led 9,000 cavalry and pursued all the way. They were about to reach Shui Yintua's palace, Overseer Mountain. At this time, the remaining 150,000 soldiers of Shui Yintua had already gathered at Overseer Mountain. They had already set up camp and were waiting for the Tang army to arrive. Chapter 1044. Pai Lupi ordered the Tang army stationed along the Great Wall to leave the pass and enter the desert to meet the king of Qin. Naturally, the generals did not dare to delay. After receiving the order, the Tang army stationed at several passes left the pass and entered the Mabe grassland. The Tang dynasty did not attach importance to the Great Wall. Unlike the Qin and Han dynasties, the Tang dynasty did not rely on the Great Wall to defend the grassland tribes. If the nomads from the north came to invade, the Tang dynasty would just mount their horses and charge into the grassland, killing the nomads until their faces turned pale. Therefore, the Tang army stationed at several passes along the Great Wall did not have many soldiers. Their main task was to patrol and warn, not to defend. The Tang army stationed at several passes totaled only 5,000 to 6,000 men. Compared to Shui Yintua's army of 200,000, it was just a drop in the ocean. However, the Tang army did not take Shui Yintua's threat seriously. After receiving Pai Lupi's order, the 5,000 to 6,000 Tang cavalry immediately charged into the grassland. It was not that the Tang army was muddle-headed and thought that they were supermen who could fight 100 men. It was because they were like Tang Songling, who had the solid support of the Tang dynasty. Therefore, they did not take Shui Yintua seriously. Unlike the 10,000 Tang cavalry led by Li Wangyu, they were attacking Shui Yintua privately under the order of Li Wangyu. However, the several thousand Tang army stationed at the Great Wall came out under the order of the emperor. The meaning was different, so was the morale. They did not believe that Shui Yintua dared to fight with them. The Tang flag in their hands was the embodiment of Pai Lupi's will in the Mabe grassland. The boundary between the Tang dynasty and Shui Yintua was the Great Wall. In addition to the Tang army stationed by the Tang dynasty, Shui Yintua also had several thousand cavalry stationed here. When the Tang army swarmed out of the pass, Shui Yintua's people were shocked. They quickly formed a formation to stop the Tang army from entering the grassland. However, the 5,000 to 6,000 Tang army did not care about the Shui Yintua cavalry stationed outside the Great Wall. They rode their horses directly into the grassland and headed north. Shui Yintua's cavalry looked at each other, but they did not dare to wave their swords and spears at the Tang army. A few of Shui Yintua's kiliarchs discussed for a while and did not know how to deal with it. They could only lead their subordinates to catch up with the Tang army and follow behind them from a distance. At the same time, they sent someone to send a message and ask for countermeasures. The 5,000 to 6,000 Tang soldiers did not even bother to pay attention to Shui Yintuo's men who were following them. They just went north to look for King of Qin. However, they did not expect that a few days later, they would encounter the 1,000 men that Li Wangyu had ordered to escort the captives and spoils of war. After a brief communication, the two sides figured out what had happened. The Tang army that was ordered to come out of the pass to receive the King of Qin was surprised, happy, and envious. He was shocked because Qin Wang was so bold. With only 9,000 men, he dared to go straight to Overseer Mountain and cause trouble for Shui Yintuo's people. They were happy that they had the exact whereabouts of the Duke of Qin, Li Wangyu. At least they didn't have to wander around the grasslands. As for the envy, it was naturally because of the thousands of prisoners and the many spoils of war in front of him. As for the Shui Yintuo's cavalry that was following the Tang army from afar, they naturally saw this scene and were both shocked and angry. How could they not be angry when they saw that thousands of their fellow soldiers were captured by the Tang army? Moreover, the Tang army's purpose of escorting them south was self-evident. Naturally, they were preparing to escort them back to the Tang dynasty. How could these Shui Yintuo's cavalry let this happen? Now that things had come to this, even if these Shui Yintuo's cavalry were unwilling to have a conflict with the Tang army, they could not bear it anymore. If they really watched as the Tang army escorted their fellow soldiers back to the Tang dynasty, then they would not be able to stay in the North Desert grasslands anymore. They would definitely be beheaded by the furious barbarian Khan. Therefore, a small-scale battle broke out. Thousands of Tang army against the same number of Shui Yintuo's cavalry. The prosperity of the Tang dynasty first came from the strength of its military. In a situation of the same scale, the Tang army could be said to be invincible. Therefore, the outcome of this small-scale battle was self-evident. 2 hours later, the defeated Shui Yintuo's cavalry fled north, battered and exhausted, while the Tang army's troops heading south gained another few hundred captives. After defeating the Shui Yintuo's cavalry, they did not dare to delay any longer. After handing over the captive Shui Yintuo's cavalry to the Tang army's cavalry heading south, they galloped in the direction of the military governor mountain. These Tang army soldiers were ordered to come out of the mountain pass. No matter what, they had to meet up with Li Wangyu. Otherwise, they would not dare to return like this. When they heard that His Highness King of Qin only commanded 9,000 men and horses to head straight to the military governor mountain to challenge Shui Yintuo's army of 200,000, these Tang army soldiers felt a chill down their spines. They did not think that the King of Qin could win. Even if they had a few thousand men, compared to Shui Yintuo's army of 200,000, it was still a drop in the bucket. Now that they were heading straight to the military governor mountain, they might just be sending themselves to their deaths. However, even if the road ahead was bleak, these Tang army soldiers did not dare to turn their horses around and head south to return to the Great Wall. Whether it was because of Pai Lupi's order or because they wanted to rescue the King of Qin, they could only brace themselves and continue forward. As soldiers, even if there was a mountain of blades and a sea of flames in front of them, they had to give it a try. If they did not succeed, they would die trying. Li Wangyu, who was thousands of miles away, naturally did not know about this small battle that happened on the grassland. At this time, he had already led 9,000 men and horses to chase after the frightened Shili all the way to the military governor mountain. Only then did he stop his footsteps. The scouts in the army reported that Shui Yintuo's army's camp was located 20 miles ahead. According to the banners on the camp, it was certain that Shui Yintuo's barbarian Khan had personally set out to battle and was currently in that camp. Li Wangyu was not so arrogant as to directly go head-to-head with Shui Yintuo's army of 100,000. After ordering people to set up camp, he led Mitua and a group of silk pants up a small hill nearby, preparing to personally observe the situation of the enemy. However, when they climbed up the hill and used binoculars to look at Shui Yintuo's camp under the protection of his personal guards and troops, their faces became quite ugly. Even if Li Wangyu knew how stupid Shui Yintuo's dismounted cavalry formation was and where its fatal weakness was, when he saw Shui Yantuo's camp not far away, he could not help but feel his heart tighten. With an army of 100,000, its camp area stretched for several miles. As far as the eye could see, Shui Yantuo's banners were fluttering in the wind and countless cavalry were galloping around the camp as a warning. In Shui Yantuo's camp, there were even more people moving about and the neighing of horses could be heard incessantly. Even if Li Wangyu's psychological quality was not bad, when he saw this camp of 100,000 people, he still felt shocked. In fact, Li Wangyu was not unaware of what a camp of 100,000 soldiers looked like. The army he had led to the west previously had 150,000 people, which was not inferior to Shui Yantuo's army in front of him at all, or even better. However, he had never looked at the camp of the Tang army from a high place. Being in the camp, he did not realize that looking at the camp of 100,000 soldiers would be so shocking. Cheng Chumo and the others also had ugly expressions at this moment. Chai Lingwu could not help but swallow his saliva. Zio, are we really going to throw a few thousand people to attack Shui Yantuo's army? Shouldn't we reconsider? Mi Tua also quickly advised, Your Highness, you have already taught Shui Yantuo's people a lesson. Why don't we immediately go south and return to the Tang dynasty? I think that if we travel light, Shui Yantuo's army will not be able to catch up with us even if they want to. The group of foppish young masters also began to persuade him, and even Agui had the same attitude. Although he wanted to avenge the Huru tribe, it was simply crazy to use a few thousand people to attack 100,000 people. Li Wangyu was persuaded by the crowd, but his heart was beating like a drum. Could this battle really be won? F***ck, don't tell me you're talking nonsense in the history books. Could Li Ji really defeat tens of thousands of Shui Yantuo's cavalry with just 6,000 people? Li Wangyu's face could not help but turn pale. He felt that he had really made a fatal mistake. Chapter 1045. After seeing the camp that stretched for miles, Li Wangyu suddenly realized that he seemed to have made a big mistake, which was to ignore the numerical advantage of Shui Yantuo's army. Although he knew the fatal weakness of Shui Yantuo's dismounted cavalry, in the face of an absolute advantage, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to break this weakness. The barbarian Khan had hundreds of thousands of troops. It was impossible for him to send all of his troops to fight him. Thus, even if he defeated tens of thousands of Shui Yantuo's army, it would be meaningless. The barbarian Khan still had hundreds of thousands of troops in his hands. He would not give him a second chance to send out cavalry to attack the cavalry at the rear. Even if the barbarian Khan was extremely stupid and ordered all of his troops to dismount and fight the Tang dynasty, Li Wangyu would not stand a chance. Shui Yantuo's army had 5 people in a team. During the battle, 4 people would dismount and 1 person would guard the horses at the rear. Among the hundreds of thousands of troops, there were nearly 30,000 people guarding the horses at the rear. On the other hand, Li Wangyu only had 2,000 cavalrymen. Unless he could conjure up a few thousand more cavalry, it would be impossible for him to defeat 30,000 people with only 2,000 cavalry. Another way to defeat Shui Yantuo's army was to use the composite steel crossbows to shoot in 3 stages. Li Wangyu believed that as long as he had enough crossbows, he would not be afraid even if there were thousands of soldiers and horses on the opposite side. However, the problem was that the 2,000 crossbowmen had a limited number of arrows in their quiver. This was not a real-time strategy game where as long as there were soldiers, there would be an endless stream of arrows to shoot out. The standard configuration of the Tang army was that each crossbowman carried 75 arrows, the same as the Mongolian cavalry in the future. This was because the Tang dynasty did not lack horses and could provide enough horses for the crossbowmen to carry supplies and other supplies. Otherwise, they would not have been able to carry so many arrows. European longbowmen in the Middle Ages usually carried only 50 arrows with them when fully loaded. As for the 2,000 crossbowmen under Li Wangyu, they had used up some of the arrows in their quiver during the chase. Now, each of them only had 50 to 60 arrows left. It was wishful thinking to rely on these crossbow bolts to defeat the 100,000-strong Shui Yantuo cavalry. Without the crossbows, the composite steel crossbows in the hands of the 2,000 archers were no different from firearms without bullets. They were even worse than fire sticks. If the barbarian male Khan did not care, and the 100,000 soldiers surrounded him from all sides, then even if he, Li Wangyu, had great ability, he would not be able to escape even if he grew wings. After understanding all this, Li Wangyu's back couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Although Li Wangyu was unwilling to accept the persuasion of the foppish young masters and Mito, he could only nod silently. All right. Let's withdraw. Motherf Ker, Nan and Xieli Luo, those two bastards, got lucky. Li Wangyu spat angrily towards the foot of the hill, then turned around and ordered everyone to descend the hill, preparing for a full retreat. Li Wangyu admitted defeat and prepared to run, but the barbarian Khan would not let him go. After Li Wangyu made the decision, the Tang army immediately abandoned the camp that they had just set up, and the rear became the front, retreating towards the south. However, the army had only run for a few dozen miles when the scouts at the back of the army quickly reported that the Shui Yantua army had also left camp, and the Super Tang army was chasing after them. Li Wangyu cursed in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. He could only order the army to speed up and retreat towards the south. The current situation was completely reversed from a few days ago. Previously, Li Wangyu led the Tang army to chase after Xieli Luo, but now, it was the barbarian Khan who led his son Xieli Luo to chase after Li Wangyu. Luckily, the 9,000 Tang cavalry led by Li Wangyu did not lack horses. Each person rode 3 horses, and with a small group moving forward, they did not have to worry about being caught by the Shui Yantua army for a while. However, the sudden change in the situation caused the morale of the 9,000 Tang cavalry to drop to the bottom. A second ago, they were still arrogant victors, and the next moment, they were chased by the Shui Yantua army like dogs. This was a huge blow to their morale. The Tang army retreated all the way south, but the Shui Yantua army did not give up and chased after them. Who asked Li Wangyu to kill the son of the barbarian Khan, Bashuo, and lead the Tang army to defeat Xieli Luo's 50,000 cavalry? He even chased them all the way to where the Shui Yantua palace was. If the barbarian Khan swallowed this humiliation and did not take revenge, then his Khan position would not be stable. After all, Shui Yantua had just established the Khanate not long ago, and the people of the various tribes in the Khanate were not stable. If Li Wangyu was allowed to leave after slapping the face of the Xuyanchuo Khanate, it would not be long before the Xuyanchuo Khanate was divided. To stop the Tang cavalry from escaping south, the barbarian Khan sent out his 10,000 most elite wolf cavalry. These 10,000 wolf cavalry used the speed of their horses to cause a lot of trouble for Li Wangyu's Tang cavalry. Luckily, with the steel crossbows in their hands, they were able to suppress the arrogance of the wolf cavalry. After leaving behind hundreds of corpses, the wolf cavalry did not dare to force their way into the Tang army. They could only follow behind the Tang cavalry and harass their speed day and night. Facing this, the Tang army could not help but feel bitter. However, as their horses were not as fast as the enemy, they could not chase them away. Li Wangyu did not have any good ideas and could only ignore them. Just like this, one chased and one fled, and 10 days passed in a flash. During this period of time, the 9,000 Tang cavalry lost close to 100 men due to the harassment of the wolf cavalry. Of course, the Shui Yantua wolf cavalry did not have it easy either. To delay the Tang army's retreat, they left behind close to 1,000 corpses. However, even so, the Tang army was in a tough spot. The North Desert was simply too huge. From the military governor mountain to the Great Wall, it was 2,000 miles. The Tang army traveled light and could only travel 100 miles in a day. To return to the Tang dynasty, they had to cross the Great Wall, and they were only halfway there. However, after being chased by the Shui Yantua army for 10 days and being harassed by the wolf cavalry, the men were tired and the horses were tired. On this day, before the sun set, the Tang army charged into a river valley. Li Wangyu immediately ordered the army to set up camp here. Although the North Desert was a grassland, it still had mountains and rivers. The river valley that they were in had mountains on both sides and trees on the mountains. At the bottom of the valley was a meandering river that was a few meters wide. The entire river valley was less than 100 steps wide, easy to defend and hard to attack. It was a rare place for the Tang army to rest. At least they did not have to worry about being attacked by the wolf cavalry in the middle of the night. As long as they blocked the entrance of the river valley, they would not have to worry about the harassment of the wolf cavalry. The tired Tang army got off their horses. Without resting, they led their equally tired horses to the river to wash them. These horses were the most trustworthy companions of the Tang army. Therefore, taking care of the horses was the most important task of every Tang army. After Li Wangyu and the wastrels handed their horses over to their personal guards to take care of, they didn't stay idle. They led a few of their personal guards up the hill and prepared to observe the situation of the enemy. Looking at the wolf cavalry army that had set up camp a few miles away, Li Wangyu could not help but curse in his heart. Fang Yi immediately cursed out, "Damn bastards, these damn wolf riders are really like ghosts that won't go away. Zio, what should we do now? If we continue to run like this, our horses might not be able to last much longer. I'm afraid we won't be able to outrun those wolf cubs that grew up on the grassland." Li Wangyu nodded silently. Everyone knew what Fang Yi said, but they did not have a way to break out of this situation. For a moment, everyone was silent. After a long time, Mi Tuo suddenly said, "Your Highness, old slave dares to say that this place is easy to defend and hard to attack. Why don't your Highness hand over the army to the old slave? Your Highness should not care about this matter and quickly return to Chang'an. His Majesty is still waiting for your Highness in Taiji Palace." Mi Tuo's words stunned Li Wangyu and the others. They immediately reacted and understood what Mi Tuo meant. Obviously, Mi Tuo intended to lead the rest of the Tang army to defend this river valley to give Li Wangyu and the other wastrels time to escape. With the ability of the Tang army, even if the barbarian Khan arrived with more than 100,000 troops, they might not be able to break through the defense of the Tang army in a short time. As long as they could delay for a few days, Li Wangyu and the others could easily escape from the pursuit of Shui Yantuo's army. Mi Tuo's words made the wastrels look at each other and did not know how to respond. If they said that they did not want to live, it would be a lie. But if they were asked to abandon the Tang army and escape on their own, Cheng Chumo and the others would definitely not agree. Everyone was speechless for a moment. They all looked at Li Wangyu, waiting to see how he would answer. Li Wangyu laughed and patted Mi Tuo's shoulder. "Haha, Mi Tuo, I am still alive and you want to snatch my military power? Get lost. Don't forget, as long as His Majesty does not give an order, I am still the chief of the Western Expedition Army. Your Highness." Mi Tuo was anxious and wanted to persuade him again. But Ah Gui, who was beside Li Wangyu, suddenly spoke. "Oh no, there is smoke and dust on the south side of the river valley. There is cavalry." Ah Gui's words shocked everyone and they all turned to look. Chapter 1046. Not only did Atai notice the appearance of cavalry in the south of the valley, the scouts in the army had also issued a warning. Horns were blown in the valley, and all the Tang soldiers did not hesitate. They quickly gathered under the orders of the captains and were ready to face the enemy. The faces of Li Wangyu and the other wastrels had turned ugly. The valley they were in was still in the hinterland of the Shui Yantuo Khanate, so there was no doubt about the identity of the cavalry in the south. Li Wangyu did not expect Shui Yantuo's men to be so fast. They had already bypassed the valley and appeared in the south. As a result, the 9,000 Tang soldiers were in a desperate situation. It was true that the valley was easy to defend, but if both sides of the valley were blocked by Shui Yantuo's army, the Tang army would be trapped in a cage. Even if Li Wangyu had great abilities, he would not be able to escape. After being stunned, Cheng Chumo spat on the ground. "Bastard! They came so fast." Atai was very experienced, and he could roughly estimate the enemy's strength just by looking at the dust. He observed carefully and was relieved. It's not a big problem, only 5,000 to 6,000 cavalry. Li Wangyu and the others were relieved when they heard this. 5,000 to 6,000 Shuai cavalry was not a big problem. Since Li Wangyu led the Tang army to defeat the 50,000 Shuai cavalry, the few thousand cavalry were not taken seriously by the others. Such a small force was not enough to stop the Tang army from leaving. Not to mention 5,000 to 6,000 cavalry, even if it was 10,000 Shuai cavalry, the Tang army would not be afraid. It was only because of the threat of Shuai 100,000 strong army that they did not dare to tangle with the Shuai cavalry. Li Wangyu did not dare to delay, and he ordered everyone to go down the mountain. Just as he was about to break out, he heard the sound of a gong coming from the camp of the Tang army. Sun Zi, discussion of troops, enter when hearing the sound of the drum, retreat when hearing the sound of the gong. Since ancient times, China would beat the gong to retreat. The sound of the gong meant that the troops were retreating, and the Tang dynasty was the same. The sound of the gong meant that the battle alarm was lifted. Li Wangyu and the debauches couldn't help but be stupefied. Could it be that the cavalry that appeared at the southern end of the valley wasn't Shuai men, but an ally? However, why would there be allies in Shuai territory? No one dared to tarry and hurriedly descended the mountain. Only when they arrived at the valley did they find out the reason. It turned out that the cavalry that appeared at the southern end of the valley was the Tang army that was ordered by Pai Lupi to go out of the Great Wall and enter the northern desert grassland to support Li Wangyu. They went all the way north, but happened to encounter the Tang army going south in this valley. After the scouts ascertained their identities, they sent back a message and removed the battle alarm of the Tang army. When the 5,000 to 6,000 Tang cavalry that had come to support met up with the Tang army led by Li Wangyu, it naturally caused waves of cheers. Although the threat of Shuai army had not been eliminated, to be able to receive reinforcements at this time was a good thing to boost the morale of the army. When Li Wangyu went down to the valley, the 5,000 to 6,000 Tang cavalry had already entered the valley. The valley was bustling with joy. A few Tang cavalry officers that were ordered to come to support immediately knelt down on one knee when they saw Li Wangyu and greeted him. I am Shueli, the Jianghu commandant of Zhichong Mansion in Daizhou of Hedong Province. I am following His Majesty's order to come out of seclusion to support His Highness Duke of Qin. Greetings to His Majesty. I am Jinwei commandant of Zhichong Mansion in Shizhou of Hedong Province. Li Wangyu was in a good mood and hurriedly went forward to help the young commandants up. I was just worried that I didn't have enough troops. You all appeared just in time. Don't be so polite, please rise. Li Wangyu had been conferred the title of Queen by Pai Lupi, so he should change his title to I or I. To this, Li Wangyu was not used to it. However, under the repeated requests of Mitua, the Minister of Imperial Household, he was slowly getting used to it. The commandants of the Tang army called Li Wangyu His Majesty, which was the official title of prince in the Tang dynasty. Although Li Wangyu always felt that this title sounded like a bandit leader, he could do nothing about it. As for Cheng Chumo and the rest, although they usually called Li Wangyu by his courtesy name, when it came to formal occasions, they still had to call him His Majesty. Li Wangyu praised the commandants of the Tang army and invited them to sit down and chat. At the same time, he ordered people to prepare wine and food. He wanted to reward these commandants. In the Tang army, there were a total of 9 ranks and 16 grades. These commandants were only secondary rank 6 and primary rank 6 commandants. They were low-level officers in the army and were far from Li Wangyu's status. Seeing Li Wangyu, the famous king of Qin, treating them so kindly, the commandants couldn't help but blush with excitement and straighten their backs. Li Wangyu chatted with the commandants for a while and suddenly remembered their self-introduction. He turned to the commandant named Shueli and asked, Commandant Shue, are you from Hedongdao? Yes, I am from Longmen County in Jianghu of Hedongdao. My ancestors are from the Shui clan's southern ancestral house. What? Li Wangyu suddenly stood up, which startled everyone. Li Wangyu ignored everyone's surprise and stared at Xueli and asked, "Do you have your courtesy name?" "Your Majesty, my courtesy name is Rengui." "Xueli? Xue Rengui?" Li Wangyu couldn't help but be in a daze. This young commandant in front of him was the famous Xue Rengui from the beginning of the Tang dynasty? The Xue Rengui who defeated the 9 surnames Tai Lu, subdued Goguryeo, and defeated the Turks. He had outstanding achievements: 3 arrows set the heavenly mountain, divine bravery conquering Liaodong, and taking off his hat and repelling 10,000 enemies. Li Wangyu had asked the question because he felt that Xueli's name was somewhat familiar, which was why he had asked. Xueli, courtesy name Rengui, was from Longmen County in Jianghu of Hedongdao. He was from the Xue clan's southern ancestral house, a famous general from the beginning of the Tang dynasty. In history, Xue Rengui joined the army at the end of the Zhengguan era. He followed Goguryeo and was promoted by Pai Lupi. When Li Wangyu thought of this, he couldn't help but be surprised. The timing didn't match. Xue Rengui joined the army when he was nearly 30 years old. At that time, it was already the 17th year of the Zhengguan era. Previously, Xue Rengui had always been farming at home. It wasn't until Pai Lupi went to Liaodong and recruited soldiers that Xue Rengui joined the army under the persuasion of his wife. However, now that it was the 7th year of the Zhengguan era, why was Xue Rengui in the army? Was this Xue Rengui really that famous general in history? Li Wangyu was a little confused. His excitement from before calmed down a little. "Commandant Xue, when did you join the army?" Li Wangyu asked again. "I joined the army in the 5th year of the Zhengguan era." "Oh? Since Commandant Xue is from the Xue family's southern ancestral house, you are also the descendant of a famous person. Why did you join the army?" Xue Rengui's face turned slightly red. He looked up at Li Wangyu and replied embarrassedly, "Your Majesty, although I am from the Xue family's southern ancestral house, my family has been poor since childhood. Although I have practiced martial arts since childhood, I have never thought of joining the army. The reason I joined the army, apart from my wife's persuasion, was mainly because of your Majesty." "Because of me?" Li Wangyu couldn't help but be surprised. He didn't understand what Xue Rengui meant. "I won't hide it from your Majesty. After I read your Majesty's Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I felt that men should be like Guan Yu, Guan Yunchang, Zhang Fei, Zhang Ida, and Zhao Zilong of Changshan. They should rely on their own abilities to assist the king and support the country. Only then would they not have wasted their time in this world. I also have some martial arts skills, so I chose to join the army. I want to make some achievements and bring glory to my ancestors. I want to bring glory to the Xue family." Xue Rengui's words made Li Wangyu's teeth ache. He felt that plagiarizing the Romance of the Three Kingdoms could make the butterfly wings of history flutter like this. Even Xue Rengui's life had been changed. He really didn't know how to evaluate this. However, when he thought about it carefully, it seemed that not only Xue Rengui, but also Li Qingqian, Li Tai, Wu Meinyang, and the others' lives had changed because he and Su Chongqing had transmigrated to the Tang dynasty. When Li Wangyu thought about these things, he couldn't help but feel happy. It wasn't a bad thing. Regardless of whether Xue Rengui had joined the army more than 10 years in advance, now that he was in trouble, the heavens sent Xue Rengui to him. It was really interesting. Cheng Chumo and the others didn't know that Li Wangyu's heart was full of twists and turns. Seeing that reinforcements had arrived, they were also happy. Fang Yai raised his head and drank a cup of wine. He shouted, "Zio, it's naturally a good thing that Officer Xue and the others have come to help. Today, we will rest and reorganize for the night. Tomorrow, we will continue to march and return to the pass as soon as possible." The dandy and Mitua nodded. Although the 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers brought by Xue Rengui wouldn't be of much use, they could raise the morale of the army. With this motivation, the soldiers could continue to hold on. If they held on for another 10 days, as long as there were no accidents, they would be able to return to the Great Wall. When Li Wangyu heard this, his eyes flashed. He shook his head and smiled. Chapter 1047. Run my ass. I'm not running anymore. I've been chased by that bastard for thousands of miles, I've had enough. Since we have reinforcements now, let's have a showdown with Xieli and Barbarian here. Li Wangyu was indeed being chased by Shui Yantua's army led by Barbarian Khan. He was so frustrated that he directly cursed. Cheng Chumo was stunned, not understanding Li Wangyu's meaning. Zio, what do you mean? Do you want to have a showdown with Barbarian Khan? That's close to 200,000 troops. Shui Yantua Khanate had 200,000 armored soldiers. Even if Xieli had lost 20 to 30,000 men, there were still 170 to 80,000 soldiers chasing after them. They were only a day's journey away. He didn't understand what Li Wangyu wanted to do. Even if reinforcements arrived, there were only 5 to 6,000 cavalry. Did Li Wangyu want to start a war with Shui Yantua's people with only 10,000 men? Wasn't that crazy? Including those officers who were ordered to support Li Wangyu, after hearing Li Wangyu's words, they were all thunderstruck. Only Xuerengui's eyes were shining, as if he didn't feel that Li Wangyu's words were inappropriate. Your Highness, don't use force. Shui Yantua is coming menacingly, it's better to avoid them for now. Mi Tua hurriedly advised. Li Wangyu waved his hand. Actually, Shui Yantua's people are not that powerful. Xieli's 50,000 cavalry were also beaten to the point of fleeing. Even if Barbarian Khan has more troops now, so what? Can they still break through the crossbowman's 3-stage shooting? He then pointed to the hills on both sides. Brothers, this valley is easy to defend and hard to attack. The valley entrance is only 100 steps wide, even if Shui Yantua has more troops, how many can he send? Previously, we didn't have enough crossbow arrows and could only retreat. But Officer Shui and the others brought a lot of armor-piercing arrows, enough to teach that bastard Barbarian Khan a lesson. Li Wangyu's words were not without reason. Xuerengui's 5 to 6,000 cavalry were all lightly armored, unlike the infantry and cavalry under Li Wangyu's command. In addition to being equipped with armor and weapons, the light cavalry soldiers were also equipped with horned bows. Every soldier carried 50 arrows in their quiver. 5 to 6,000 cavalrymen, that meant they had brought close to 300,000 bows and arrows. Including the arrows that Li Wangyu's archers still had, they had a total of 4 to 500,000 arrows. With enough ammunition, Li Wangyu had enough confidence to say what he had just said. His explanation made Cheng Chumo and the others' eyes light up, feeling that it was reasonable. The power of the Atlas crossbow, as well as the 3-stage shooting method that Li Wangyu came up with, had already proven its valiant lethality. Cheng Chumo was confident that no army could withstand such a dense and powerful rain of arrows. Not to mention Shui Yantua, even the Tang army could not do it. Even the most elite cavalry of the Tang dynasty, the Black Armored Army, could not do it. The valley they were in now was an excellent place to fight. They did not need to worry about Shui Yantua's army surrounding them from all sides. As long as they could withstand the attacks of Shui Yantua's army, they would be invincible. Cheng Chumo and the others were actually the same as Li Wangyu. These days, they had been chased by Shui Yantua's army until they were frustrated. Being harassed by those damn wolf cavalry day and night made them even angrier. After hearing Li Wangyu's plan, they did not hesitate and were all rubbing their hands together in excitement. Ziyu's words make sense. F***ck his mother. Bastard, after chasing us for so long, it's time to let that bastard Barbarian Khan have a taste of our power. That's right, damn it, being chased for thousands of miles, I've had enough. F***ck his mother. That's right, now that we have tens of thousands of soldiers, let's fight that old Barbarian Khan. Shuai did not hesitate and bowed. "My king, if you trust this general is willing to lead my soldiers as the vanguard and serve my king." Willing to serve my king. Although the rest of the captains felt that Li Wangyu and the others were crazy, they could not say anything at this time and could only follow Shuai lead and ask to fight. Li Wangyu raised his head and laughed. Of course, I dare to fight the barbarian Khan here because of Lieutenant Shuai's help. Whether we can win this battle or not, it all depends on Lieutenant Shuai. Shuai was a rare fierce general in the early Tang dynasty. He joined the army in the 17th year of Zhengguan and followed Pai Lupi to Liaodong, achieving great merit in his first battle. According to the history books, Shuai was dressed in white, with a halberd and spear in his hands and 2 bows at his waist. He was invincible and defeated the Goguryeo army. If the 30-year-old Shuai was so brave, how could the 20-year-old Shuai not do the same? To defeat Shuai army, the key was to attack the cavalry behind the dismounted cavalry formation. As long as he defeated Shuai cavalry and turned them into cripples, Li Wangyu would not be afraid even if he fought with fewer people. Previously, he only had 2,000 cavalry under him and did not have a fierce general to lead them. It was difficult for him to attack Shuai cavalry. Who would have thought that the little wings of history would flap, and because of a romance of the 3 kingdoms, Shuai joined the army 10 years earlier and led the Tang army to reinforce him. This naturally gave Li Wangyu a lot of confidence. He was prepared to hand over his 2,000 cavalry and the 5,000 to 6,000 cavalry to Shuai. When the 2 sides were fighting, Shuai would lead his troops to attack Shuai cavalry. As long as he succeeded, needless to say, the 100,000 Shuai army would be no more than chickens and dogs. Li Wangyu kept his smile and said solemnly, "Shuai, listen to my orders. Present. I order you to be the commander of the cavalry, and all the cavalry will be under your command. Do you have the confidence to lead the cavalry to defeat Shuai army?" Li Wangyu's words shocked everyone. The rich kids and Mitua looked at each other, not understanding what Li Wangyu meant. This young officer named Shuai was merely a Jianghu chaplain of the upper 6th rank. A lieutenant only led 1,000 men, and his position was similar to a colonel in the future. Under Li Wangyu's command were the Xianwei general of the lower 4th rank, the Dingyuan general of the upper 5th rank, and the Qi general of the lower 5th rank. Their positions were similar to the major generals or brigadier generals of the future. To let a colonel command a group of major generals and brigadier generals, this matter was weird no matter how one looked at it. More importantly, Li Wangyu and Shuai had only met for the first time, so why would he give him such an important task? To hand over all 6,000 to 7,000 horse soldiers to a 20-year-old lieutenant commander? The rich kids naturally did not know about Shuai's outstanding military achievements in history, and they did not understand why Li Wangyu valued this young lieutenant so much. However, although everyone was astonished, no one said anything to refute him. After all, Li Wangyu had too many mysterious abilities, and they were most familiar with Li Wangyu, so they knew that he would not speak without thinking. Since he thought highly of this young lieutenant, there must be a reason for it. When the Qin king gave the order, the rich kids did not say anything. Even if the generals in the army cursed in their hearts, they did not dare to say anything. Shuai was also surprised, as he did not expect the Qin king to give him such a heavy task. He opened his mouth, wanting to refuse, but in the end, the ambition in his heart made him hold his head high and punch his chest heavily. This general obeys. If I do not win, this general will bring my head to see the king. What do I want your head for? I want the heads of the barbarian man and Shili Fu. Li Wangyu was in a good mood, and he patted Shuai's shoulder with a smile. All the soldiers in the army congratulated Shuai, which made Shuai's face turn red. Obviously, he was very excited about Li Wangyu's important task. After everyone chatted and laughed, Li Wangyu called everyone to sit down again, and they began to discuss the matters of the war. Chapter 1048. In Wuxia Xianxia's camp, the barbarian Khan held a golden cup and sat on the Khan's seat. A few young and beautiful women served him carefully. He drank the wine in the cup and looked at Xie Fu. Is the news true? The Tang army has no reason to continue running? They are staying in that valley? Xie Fu's face was ferocious. Father, this is the news from the wolf cavalry. It must be true. Humph, they have been chased by my army for more than 10 days. With the wolf cavalry attacking them at any time, I'm afraid they are tired and have no strength to continue. I'm afraid they can't run even if they want to, so they can only stop. They want to use the geographical advantage to fight against my army. The barbarian Khan looked up and laughed. What a joke. They are only thousands of men. So what if they have the geographical advantage? When father arrives with the army tomorrow, I will crush them into powder. To vent my anger. Father, I'm afraid that the Qin king is as timid as a mouse and purposely let the Tang army stay behind to delay the attack so that he can take the opportunity to escape. If we can't catch the Qin king and let him escape back to the Tang dynasty, I will not be satisfied. The barbarian Khan's eyes flashed and he nodded slightly. Yes, that's most likely the case. But even if we can't catch the Qin king, those Tang army must be annihilated in the northern desert grassland. None of them can escape. Humph, the Tang dynasty is powerful, but I, Wuxia Xianxia, can't come and go as I please. We have to teach them a lesson they will never forget. He thought for a while and continued, after the Tang army is annihilated, cut off all their heads and let the Tang dynasty's envoy bring them back. I want to see what the heavenly Khan of the Tang dynasty has to say. Xie Fu nodded. Father is wise. The father and son looked at each other, then both of them raised their heads and laughed loudly. The army led by the barbarian Khan rushed to the valley where the Tang army was stationed the next day. They set up camp outside the valley and surrounded the entrance of the valley. Wuxia Xianxia's army rested for a day. On the morning of the third day, they beat the war drums. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers of Wuxia Xianxia's army, clad in armor and carrying blades, lined up in neat rows as they poured out of the camp. The black mass of people densely covered the grassland outside the valley. Their momentum was astonishing, and a murderous aura filled the air. Even the soaring eagles in the sky seemed to be shocked by this soaring momentum, and did not dare to approach the battlefield at all. The Tang army was naturally prepared. Following the beating of the war drums, they swarmed out and blocked the narrow entrance to the valley. There were still 2,000 jumping soldiers holding shields at the front of the battle formation. Behind them were 1,000 Imo sabers wearing Mingguang armor and wielding Imo sabers. Behind them were 2,000 archers. What was different from before was that there were nearly 100 arrows piled up in front of each archer. The fine steel arrowheads shone with a dazzling cold light under the morning sun. If they were ordinary archers of the Tang dynasty, Li Wangyu would never equip them with so many arrows. The reason was simple. No archer could draw the bowstring more than 100 times. For the ordinary bows of the Tang dynasty, even if it was a one-pickle bow, the soldiers could only draw the bowstring 20 to 30 times in a row before their arms were almost exhausted, and it was impossible for them to continue drawing the bowstring. This was the limitation of the human body's physiological structure. No matter how brave and reasonable a general was, he would not be that strong. One of the reasons why firearms would replace bows was because firearms would replace bows. However, the composite crossbow that Li Wangyu had designed was designed with Yan Liben's help. In order to save energy and satisfy the needs of a small body like himself, Li Wangyu had designed a booster for the composite crossbow. With the booster to help him draw the bowstring, it would naturally save energy. Moreover, in order to prevent the archers from exhausting their strength, Li Wangyu also gathered the auxiliary soldiers in the army. Once the archers were unable to draw the bowstring, the auxiliary soldiers would be able to replace them. The biggest advantage of a crossbow was that after the bowstring was drawn, it would be in a state of accumulating energy and waiting to be fired. Therefore, the most exhausting part of drawing the bowstring could be handed over to others. 2,000 archers, 4 to 500,000 arrows, this was where Li Wangyou's confidence in winning lied. The strength of the Tang army archers was something that Xie Luo had suffered a lot. This was something that Shui Yantua's men were naturally clear about. Hence, to counter the archers of the Tang army, the barbarian man Khan thought of many ways. The barbarian man Khan had 160 to 170,000 troops in his hands. Apart from the auxiliary soldiers and the soldiers guarding the horses, the number of troops he could throw in was 100,000, 10 times that of the Tang army. Hence, just the vanguard forces alone, the barbarian man Khan sent out 30,000 troops at once. However, the entrance of the valley that the Tang army was defending was only 100 steps wide. A single line of soldiers could at most line up to 1,000 men. Hence, even if Shui Yantua had 30,000 men at the front, he could only send 5,000 men into the battlefield in batches. In the hands of these vanguard soldiers were pretty much all the shields of the Shui Yantua army. Their goal was obvious, which was to defend against the arrows of the Tang army. To prevent the vanguard forces from collapsing like the previous time and charging into the middle troops, the barbarian man Khan sent out all the 10,000 wolf cavalry to act as military judges to supervise the orders. Anyone who retreated or ran would be killed without mercy. In the eyes of the barbarian man Khan and Xie Luo, even if the 30,000 vanguard forces died, as long as the Tang army could fight to the death, it would be a victory. Under the beating of Shui Yantua's war drums, the 30,000 vanguard troops started to move. Like a flood, they pressed towards the entrance of the valley that the Tang army was defending. The 30,000 vanguard troops, 5,000 men in a group, 100 meters apart in the middle, there were hundreds of wolf cavalry holding sharp blades patrolling on their horses. The moment Shui Yantua's cavalry wanted to retreat, the weapons in the hands of the wolf cavalry would mercilessly slash at them. Under such strict orders, the Shui Yantua soldiers knew that they had no way to retreat and could only fight to the death against the Tang army. After all, based on Shui Yantua's military law, if they died on the battlefield, their families could still receive compensation. Although it was not much, it was enough for their families to rely on. And if they were killed by the wolf cavalry, not only would they not receive compensation, they would also be labeled as cowards, making their families unable to raise their heads in the tribe. It was also because of this that when Shui Yantua's vanguard troops pressed forward, that kind of fearless momentum was noticed by Li Wangyu and the other wastrels on the watchtower carriage behind the Tang army. Ziyu, this is not good. Shui Yantua's wolf cubs, why do they look like they have been injected with wolf blood? Fang Yai could not help but feel nervous. Cheng Chumo held the binoculars and looked for a while before replying, "Look at the wolf cavalry behind Shui Yantua's men. I'm afraid that the barbarian man Khan gave a death order to prevent Shui Yantua's soldiers from retreating. Damn it, they are going to fight to the death. Ziyu, looks like after you killed Kishuo, the barbarian man hates you to the bone." Li Wangyu also smiled bitterly, knowing that Cheng Chumo was right. Now it was too late to say anything. It all depended on whether the Tang army could withstand the pressure and resist the crazy attack of Shui Yantua's army. Shui Yantua's war drums became more and more urgent, and the footsteps of Shui Yantua's vanguard troops became faster and faster. They slowly trotted and rushed toward the Tang army's battle formation. The war had begun. This time, the Tang army's 2,000 archers did not let Shui Yantua's men get close. When Shui Yantua's dismounted cavalry stepped into the shooting range, the 2,000 archers began to shoot under the command of the lieutenant. A sky full of arrows rained down from the sky, directly toward Shui Yantua's army hundreds of meters away. All of Shui Yantua's cavalry immediately raised the shields in their hands, vainly trying to block the arrows. But the arrowheads of the Tang army were all made of fine steel and were extremely sharp. In addition, the composite steel crossbows were pushed by the four-pickle bowstring, making them even sharper. When the arrows rained down, they instantly penetrated the shields of Shui Yantua's men. They penetrated the shields, cut through the armor, and pierced through the human body, author's note, being nagged every day, this old man is ashamed. But this book is about to end, please bear with it for a while. Chapter 1049. As the arrows rained down, Xianxua's vanguard immediately suffered a fatal blow. Just one round of arrows took away the lives of hundreds of soldiers, and the number of injured was uncountable. Miserable cries and blood splattered everywhere, and it was comparable to the Azura hell. If it was in the past, the remaining soldiers would have been defeated by such a heavy blow. The casualty ratio was almost more than 10%. But the formation of Xianxua's soldiers, after a moment of chaos, continued to raise their shields and charge forward under the scolding of the centurions and chiliarchs. They knew that the shields in their hands could not block the arrows of the Tang army. Perhaps the next person to be hit by the arrows would be themselves. The first wave of 5,000 soldiers could not retreat, and they did not dare to retreat. Forward was death, and backward was also death. Only by risking their lives, they might be able to break through the defense of the Tang army. This was the only thought in the minds of Xianxua's vanguard. Since they were chosen to be the vanguard and lead the charge, their fate had been determined. The composite arrows of the Tang dynasty could shoot a distance of 400 steps. It would take at least a minute to put on armor and run this distance of 400 meters. And within a minute, the 2,000 archers of the Tang army had already shot 3 rounds of arrows, shooting out nearly 6,000 arrows. Before the first wave of 5,000 soldiers of Xianxua's vanguard could reach the front of the Tang army, they had already been shot by the arrows. The path of the charge was full of corpses, and blood had already soaked the grassland. Presumably, this grassland would grow abnormally dense in the coming year. When the remaining soldiers of Xianxua were within 100 meters, the arrows that filled the sky suddenly disappeared. It was not that the archers of the Tang army were merciful, but the second wave of 5,000 soldiers of Xianxua's vanguard had started to charge again. Under the command of the lieutenant, they gave up on the remaining soldiers, adjusted the angle of the Atlas crossbows in their hands, and started to shoot arrows of death at the charging enemy. The battle formation of the Tang army also moved at this time. At the front of the battle formation, the jumping soldiers holding shields to defend against the enemy's arrows suddenly retreated, and 1,000 Mo swordsmen wearing heavy Mingguang armor stepped forward and stood at the front. In the Tang army, those who could be chosen as the Mo saber wielders were all strong and healthy people. To be able to wear the thick and heavy Mingguang armor and wield a Mo sword that was 9 feet long and weighed 15 kilograms, one would definitely not be able to do it without extraordinary arm strength and strength. These 1,000 Mo swordsmen stood at the front of the formation like unmoving reefs since ancient times, ready to face the assault of the tide at any moment. As Xianxua's soldiers got closer and closer, the commander of the Mo sabers shouted out an order. 1,000 Mo sabers that were shining with cold light were raised high up in the air. Then, they slashed down as fast as lightning. The light of the blade flashed, and everything under its edge was crushed into powder. Under the Mo blade, be it the shields in the hands of the Xianxua soldiers or the armor on their bodies, they were no different from paper. With a single slash of the saber, it was cut into 2 halves. As for the flesh and blood of Xianxua's soldiers, there was no need to talk about it. After the cold light, countless severed limbs flew all over the sky, blood splattered everywhere, and miserable screams almost shattered the clouds in the sky. This was the Mo swordsmen of the Tang dynasty, the strongest infantry in the era of cold weapons. Like a wall, men and horses were crushed. Xianxua's first wave of 5,000 men and horses, most of them were shot to death by the crossbowmen. The rest of them luckily escaped and tried their best to rush to the front of the Tang army formation. However, they were just sending their heads 1,000 miles away. The 1,000 Mo swordsmen slashed twice, and the corpses of the enemy chiefs in front of them were piled up like a mountain. And the only damage they caused to the Tang army's Mo swordsmen was only a few scratches of varying depths on the Mingguang armor. This scene also fell into the eyes of the barbarian Khan and his son Xieli. Even though he was a hero of the grassland, the barbarian Khan's eyelids couldn't help but tremble a few times. Xie Mi's back was soaked with sweat. They naturally knew about the bravery of the Tang army, but witnessing it with their own eyes gave them a different feeling. Father, the Tang army's swordsmen are really amazing. The barbarian Khan's face was gloomy as he nodded silently. They are indeed amazing, but so what? The Tang dynasty's sabers weigh 30 pounds. How many times can these swordsmen slash? When they are exhausted, it will be the time of the Tang army's destruction. Father is wise. It was obvious that this father and son pair did not place the lives of Shui Yantua's soldiers in their eyes. To use tens of thousands of people to exhaust the Tang army would be a victory. As for how many people would die, the barbarian Khan did not care at all. The barbarian Khan's calculations were not wrong at all. Even a well-trained and carefully selected swordsman would not be able to wield a sword that weighed 30 jin without limit. There was a limit to one's strength, and this was a law of nature that could not be broken. Once the swordsmen were exhausted, it would be tough for them to maintain the Tang army's defensive line. With such a plan in mind, the barbarian Khan sent the wolf cavalry out to supervise the military order, chasing Shui Yantua's soldiers to their deaths one by one, pushing them into the meat grinder to exhaust the strength of the Tang army. After all, Shui Yantua's army had 100,000 people. Even if the Tang army killed 30 to 40,000, so what? Furthermore, with thousands of Tang soldiers, no matter how valiant they were, how many people could they truly kill? Just as the barbarian Khan had predicted, Shui Yantua's front army of 30,000 people was formed into groups of 5,000 people. Like moths to a flame, they charged towards the Tang army. 2 waves of Shui Yantua's army had already been buried in the grassland. The swordsmen were getting more and more dismembered. Even the strong swordsmen started to suffer casualties under the desperate attacks of Shui Yantua's soldiers. On the carriage, Li Wangyu and the other rich kids looked at each other and nodded silently. Whether their plan would succeed or not depended on this. Li Wangyu signaled to Niu Wu, who immediately took off his robe. His upper body was bare, and his muscles bulged like fists, shining under the sunlight. Niu Wu pulled aside the soldiers beside the war drum and spat on his palm. Then, he grabbed the drumstick and hit it with force. The Tang army's war drum sounded, and the Tang army heard the drum and moved. The 1,000 swordsmen coldly kept their swordsmen and gathered their strength. At the same time, all of them stepped forward. The uniform footsteps gave off a sound like that of a drum, matching the sound of the Tang army's war drum. The 5,000 Tang army started to push forward. The Tang army actually did not guard the entrance of the valley, but directly pushed out. This change caused the Shui Yantua's army to stagnate. The barbarian Khan suddenly stood up from the stirrups, his eyes filled with shock. How dare they? How dare they charge out of the valley? Are they not afraid that this Khan will surround them and annihilate them? Xie was also in disbelief. With such a huge disparity in strength, the Tang army actually started to counterattack. How could they? Father, maybe the Tang people know that their strength cannot last long. Rather than waiting for death, why not give it a try? This will save us a lot of trouble. Since they are willing to charge out, there is nothing bad about it. The barbarian Khan did not comment on Xieli's words. His eyes stared straight ahead, wanting to see what the Tang army was trying to do. The Tang army that came out of the valley once again clashed with the Shui Yantua's army. The sky was still filled with broken limbs, and the wails of the Shui Yantua's army. The 5,000 Tang army formed a battle formation and charged forward with no hesitation. Their sharpness was unstoppable. To be honest, I am not very good at writing war scenes. If you are not happy with it, please forgive me. I have already tried my best. Chapter 1050. Not only did the Tang army not defend the valley, but they also pushed out after crushing Shui Yantua's 2 waves of attacks. This was not because Li Wangyu was hot-headed and felt that 5,000 Tang army could go against the 100,000 Shui Yantua cavalry. The Tang army was at a disadvantage, and this was an undeniable fact. After Li Wangyu discussed with the debauches and a group of generals and lieutenants in the army, they believed that the only way to win was to put enough pressure on Shui Yintuo's army and let the barbarian Khan invest more troops. As long as Shui Yintuo's cavalry got off their horses, Shui Rengui's 6,000 to 7,000 cavalry would charge out of the valley and go around the battlefield to attack Shui Yintuo's cavalry. Hence, even if they were at a disadvantage, the 5,000 Tang army still charged out without hesitation. When the Tang army charged out of the valley, Shui Yintuo's advantage was shown. Originally, the Tang army defended the valley, and no matter how strong Shui Yintuo's forces were, he could only send more troops to attack the valley entrance. After the Tang army took the initiative to attack, how could Khan let go of such a good chance? He waved his hand and Shui Yintuo's main force finally moved out. Khan sent out another 60,000 men in one breath, splitting into the left and right, ready to pincer the Tang army from the sides. Although he felt that something was not right, Shui Yintuo's remaining 20,000 vanguard troops were facing huge pressure from the Tang army, and they were showing signs of not being able to win. The 5,000 Tang army had the firepower of the heaven-raising crossbows and the unstoppable killing power of the Mo swordsmen, forcing Shui Yintuo's vanguard to retreat. Even if the wolf cavalry kept on shouting orders and even killed dozens of retreating Shui Yintuo cavalry, they were still unable to prevent the defeat of the Tang army. However, when Khan directly sent out 60,000 men to pincer the Tang army's attack stopped. 2,000 jump soldiers blocked the front of the left and right wings of the Tang army, and the archers were also forced to split into two rows to try and suppress the enemies in three directions. However, the 5,000 Tang army was surrounded by 70,000 to 80,000 Shui Yintuo cavalry. No matter how valiant the Tang army was, they could not avoid casualties. When Shui Yintuo's archers started to shoot arrows, they caused huge casualties to the Tang army. The bouncing soldiers and Mo swordsmen were still fine. At the very least, they had shields and heavy armor to defend themselves. Even if they were hit by arrows, they would not be hit in the vitals and could still hold on. However, the crossbowmen in the middle of the Tang army's battle formation were at a great disadvantage in the crossfire with the crossbowmen of Shui Yintuo. Even though the composite steel crossbows in their hands were far superior to Shui Yintuo's bow and arrows, the numerical disadvantage determined the number of arrows that both sides could fire. Furthermore, as archers, they were not equipped with shields. Even the armor they wore was only light armor. As the arrows rained down on the Tang army, the casualties of the archers began to increase. Li Wangyu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he watched the hundreds of archers fall to the ground. He gripped the wooden railing so hard that his knuckles turned white. The possible casualties of the Tang army had actually been predicted by him and the other foppish sons, as well as the officers and soldiers in the army, and they were mentally prepared. However, when the scene really appeared in front of his eyes, Li Wangyu still could not accept it. He even began to blame himself deeply. In his mind, he kept repeating a sentence: a general makes a name for himself and tens of thousands of bones wither. A general makes a name for himself and tens of thousands of bones wither. However, these officers and soldiers were still alive just a moment ago. How could they become Li Wangyu's stepping stones? They also had parents, wives, and children. How could Li Wangyu face the families of these officers and soldiers when they died in the Mabe grassland? Thinking of this, Li Wangyu felt that there was a breath stuck in his chest, and he did not know how to vent it out. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary person who had lived in a peaceful era since childhood. When had he ever seen such a bloody battlefield? Even though he had experienced a lot after transmigrating to the Tang dynasty, Li Wangyu was still a loser in his bones. He had never thought about the blood and fire of war, but the reality forced him to face it. The sacrifice of the Tang dynasty's officers and soldiers made Li Wangyu ashamed and angry. The bloody fighting on the battlefield made his heart beat violently, and a stuffy feeling in his chest made him look up to the sky and howl. Li Wangyu's sudden outburst scared the wastrels, and they did not understand what had happened to him. In the next moment, Li Wangyou's action stunned everyone. As the Tang army's commander-in-chief, this guy actually ran straight down the observation tower carriage, mounted his warhorse, and grabbed a long spear from the hands of the troops next to him. Then, Li Wangyou urged his horse to go to Shui Rengui's side and stared at the battlefield outside the valley without saying a word. Cheng Chumo and the others were stunned for a long time before they ran over. Zio, what are you doing? Zio, don't make trouble. Come back quickly. Niu Wu was so scared that his face turned pale. He reached out and grabbed Li Wangyou's reins. Lang Jun, what are you doing? Don't scare me. Mi Tuo was so shocked that he screamed, Your Highness, what are you doing? Come back quickly. Shui Rengui and the Tang cavalry were also stunned by Li Wangyou's actions. After a long time, Shui Rengui on the horse cupped his fist and saluted Li Wangyou, Your Majesty, what do you mean by this? Li Wangyou did not even bat an eyelid at their questions. He just held the long spear in his hand and said coldly, I will follow you to charge and kill the enemy. When Mi Tuo heard his words, he almost fainted from fright. Everyone in the world knew that the king of Qin had no strength to truss a chicken. In terms of intelligence, no one could compare to the king of Qin. But in terms of battle formation and martial arts, this guy was simply trash. If he followed the Ma army to charge, Pai Lupi would skin everyone alive if something happened to him. Swords and spears had no eyes on the battlefield. No matter who went to the battlefield, his head was hanging on his belt and could be lost at any time. As long as Mi Tuo was not crazy, he would not dare to let Li Wangyou, the king of Qin of the Tang dynasty, go to the battlefield. At this time, Mi Tuo did not care about seniority. He jumped in front of Li Wangyou's horse and reached out with Niu Wu to hold the reins of Li Wangyou's horse. He did not dare to let go no matter what. Your Highness, old slave begs you, please don't. His Majesty has already ordered old slave to ensure your Highness's safety and not to take risks. Your Highness, for the sake of old slave's old bones, please don't make it difficult for old slave. Mi Tuo begged with tears and snot running down his face. He looked so pitiful that anyone who saw him would cry. But Li Wangyou was holding back his anger at this time. How could he listen to Mi Tuo's words? He stared at Mi Tuo expressionlessly and spat out two words coldly, let go. Your Highness, please don't. Your Highness. Mi Tuo still wanted to persuade, but Li Wangyou did not want to listen to him. He impatiently waved to the troops next to him, signaling them to drag Mi Tuo away. These Lai-hot troops were also afraid. They did not know whether they should listen to their Lang Jun or not. For a moment, they could not help but turn to look at Niu Wu. Niu Wu had been with Li Wangyou for the longest time, so he knew Li Wangyou the most. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded to his subordinates, signaling them to do as he said. After Mi Tuo was dragged away by the Lai-hot troops, Niu Wu did not hesitate. He also jumped on a horse and urged it to go to Li Wangyou's side. The Lai-hot troops also got on their horses and tightly surrounded Li Wangyou in the middle. These Lai-hot troops were originally imperial guards. They were not tired of fighting on the battlefield. In fact, they were even eager to have a try. They did not want to retire. Instead, they joined Li Wangyou and became Lai-hot troops. Of course, they were ambitious. The Tang dynasty valued military achievements the most. If they were in the army, they would only be ordinary sergeants or colonels. It would be very difficult for them to climb up the ranks. Just like in the government office, a government servant was a government servant. It was impossible for them to become an internal official. However, if they joined the army, not only would they be paid well, but they would also have more opportunities to become outstanding. For example, if they followed their Lang Jun to fight on the battlefield, as long as they made a contribution, they would be able to return to the army and become a captain. It would be a great honor to their ancestors. After all, even if it was the lowest rank of a captain, it would still be a rank above the 9th rank. It was a true military official of the Tang dynasty. Therefore, when Li Wangyu wanted to fight on the battlefield, these troops were very excited. They all rubbed their hands together. After Shui Rengui was appointed as the commander of the cavalry by Li Wangyu, he was originally in high spirits. He was ready to show off his skills in front of the king of Qin. In the end, Li Wangyu's actions caused him to be at a loss of what to do. Everyone, don't worry. This old man has finished preparing, but it will take some time. As long as you don't mind the slow pace, you can wait for a few more days. Chapter 1051. Li Wangyu wanted to go to the battlefield and charge with the cavalry, not because he wanted to show off, but because he wanted to have peace of mind. Li Wangyu was not a saint, nor was he a white lotus. He could not bear to see the Tang dynasty's soldiers fall. But no matter what, he was responsible for the Tang dynasty's soldiers falling on the battlefield today. If he had listened to Mi Tuo's advice and returned to the Tang dynasty after defeating Xieli, how could these Tang dynasty's soldiers fall on the Mabe grassland? Although they were soldiers and were mentally prepared to die on the battlefield, Li Wangyu found it hard to convince himself. Since it was his willful action that made the Tang dynasty's soldiers face such a dangerous situation, how could he have the face to hide in the valley and watch others die? Li Wangyu insisted on Shui Rengui's cavalry to go to the battlefield, only to have peace of mind. As for the possible consequences, he could not care about them now. How could Shui Rengui know what Li Wangyu was thinking? He wanted to say something, but before he could speak, the horn sounded from the watchtower. It was the signal for action that they had agreed on before. The desperate attack of 5,000 Tang soldiers had attracted all the attention of Shui Yantuo's men. Now nearly 10% of the 5,000 Tang soldiers had died. If the cavalry did not attack, they might miss the opportunity and even implicate the attacking Tang army to be completely wiped out. Shui Rengui clenched his teeth and said no more. He put down his helmet and nodded to the captains of the cavalry on his left and right. Then he squeezed the horse's belly and urged it to rush out. The 6,000 to 7,000 cavalry started to move. The rumbling sound of hooves was heard. All the horses trotted slowly and then sped up. They were getting faster and faster. In a flash, they rushed out of the valley under Shui Rengui's leadership. After rushing out of the valley, the cavalry was immediately divided into two groups. They did not tangle with Shui Yantuo's men. Under the leadership of Shui Rengui and another cavalry general, they rushed out to the left and right wings of the battlefield. Li Wangyu, under the escort of Niu Wu and the other troops, followed closely behind the army. However, he was not stupid. When the cavalry was split into two, he ordered his men to follow behind Shui Rengui's cavalry. No matter what, Li Wangyu only wanted to seek peace of mind, not to throw away his life. It was much safer to follow Shui Rengui, a famous general of the Tang dynasty. In fact, there was no need for Li Wangyu to think about this. Including Shui Rengui, none of these Tang dynasty soldiers dared to do anything to Li Wangyu, the king of Qin of the Tang dynasty. Without even needing Shui Rengui to give the order, the Ma army tightly surrounded Li Wangyu in the middle of the group. In addition, Niu Wu and the other troops also protected him. It could be said that unless the entire Ma army died on the battlefield, even if Li Wangyu wanted to kill the enemy, it would not be his turn to make a move. When the Tang dynasty's cavalry rushed out of the valley toward the two flanks of the battlefield, the barbarian Khan, who was watching from Shui Yantuo's army, finally understood where the uneasiness in his heart came from. The Tang army's standard battle formation should have cavalry on the left and right sides of the formation to guard against sneak attacks from the two flanks. However, the 5,000 Tang infantry in front of him actually rushed out so casually, as if they were not afraid of exposing the two flanks to the enemy. The situation was so urgent that the barbarian Khan did not have time to think too much. Now that the Tang cavalry suddenly appeared, he realized that something was wrong. What made his heart beat even faster was that the number of the Tang dynasty's cavalry was not the previous 2,000, but 6,000 to 7,000. Where did these extra troops come from? Could it be that the Tang dynasty's reinforcements had arrived? When the barbarian Khan thought that the Tang army would go all out to attack Mo Bay, he almost subconsciously wanted to order the army to retreat immediately. He had already seen how terrifying the Tang army was. Just the 5,000 Tang soldiers on the battlefield had killed nearly 20,000 Shui Yintua's soldiers. The terrifying crossbow bolts and the unstoppable Mo sabers. If it were not for the wolf cavalry desperately suppressing them, Shui Yintua's army would not have been able to hold on and would have been defeated. Although the current situation of the battlefield was already leaning toward Shui Yintua's side, if nothing unexpected happened, it was only a matter of time before they killed the 5,000 Tang soldiers. Even so, the barbarian Khan estimated that Shui Yintua would have to pay a painful price of 40 to 50,000 men. Under such circumstances, if the Tang army still had reinforcements, then what was the point of fighting? Even if he played all the cards in his hand, it would not be enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of the Tang army. All of a sudden, the faces of the barbarian Khan and Xieli became really ugly. The appearance of the Tang cavalry also caused a commotion on the battlefield. Although Shui Yintua's men were attacking the Tang army, they were still being attacked by the fierce crossbow bolts and Mo sabers. Without the wolf cavalry suppressing them, the troops on the left and right were in chaos after nearly 1,000 of them were killed by the Tang army's crossbows. Even if their numbers were several times that of the Tang army, they were still afraid and did not dare to go all out. It was also because of this that the Tang army had a chance to breathe. Otherwise, if the two wings with a total of 60,000 charged up, even if the Tang army had 3 heads and 6 arms, they would not be able to stop them. After the Tang cavalry charged out, the Shui Yintua people who were attacking the Tang army from the sides panicked. They were worried that they would be attacked by the Tang cavalry and had no way to advance or retreat. However, the Tang cavalry did not care about the Shui Yintua people. Instead, they charged at the two wings, drawing out 2 huge arcs on the battlefield as they charged at the back of Shui Yintua's forces. Only now did the barbarian Khan and Xieli react and understand the true intention of the Tang army. Xieli could not help but cry out in fear, "Father, not good, they want to attack the back of the army. Quickly order reinforcements." The barbarian Khan was even more clear about what it meant if the back of the army was attacked. Without needing Xieli to say anything, he had already roared at the captains beside him. The Tang cavalry attacking the back of Shui Yintua's forces caused the situation on the front of the battlefield to become chaotic. The captains and Kiliarchs didn't know whether they should continue the attack or retreat to reinforce the rear. At this moment, other than the 30,000 men guarding the horses, Shui Yintua's back of the army was quite empty. However, Shui Yintua's extremely stupid dismounted cavalry formation, even if they wanted to return to the back of the army, how could they outrun the 4-legged horses? Following the barbarian Khan's roar, without waiting for Shui Yintua's main army to retreat to defend, Shui Rengui and the other cavalry broke into the back of Shui Yintua's army from left and right. Shui Rengui took the lead, holding a halberd and 2 bows at his waist. Like a god descending from the heavens, he charged into the enemy camp with an unstoppable force. The thousands of cavalry behind him followed closely behind, charging in with the momentum of a thunderbolt. Although there were 30,000 men guarding the horses in the back of Shui Yintua's army, these people did not form a battle formation. Instead, they were scattered around taking care of the horses. This gave Shui Rengui and the others more space to display their abilities. When the Tang army broke into the back of Shui Yintua's army, it was a complete mess. Countless horses of Shui Yintua's army were frightened and fled in all directions. Shui Rengui naturally did not chase after the fleeing horses. These horses could be slowly collected after cleaning up the battlefield after the war. However, it was impossible for Shui Yintua's army to rely on these horses to fight or escape in a short period of time. In this way, Li Wangyou's purpose of ordering the Tang army to attack Shui Yintua's army was achieved. Li Wangyou charged with the army, the frustration in his heart was long gone. This feeling of riding the horse and attacking the enemy had already made his scalp numb, and he almost roared out in excitement. He waved the halberd in his hand, wishing that he could immediately kill a few enemies with his own hands. However, it was obvious that Li Wangyu was disappointed. After charging with Shui and Gui for a while, Shui Yantua's army almost collapsed. The Tang army killed all the way, and blood flowed like a river. However, his halberd was clean, and there was not even a trace of blood. Everyone, I wish you a happy National Day 2020. Be healthy, have a family reunion, and wish you all the best. Chapter 1052. It was the end of summer in the 7th year of Zhengguan. With the sound of the horn, the Xuanda gate of the Taiji Palace slowly opened. Numerous imperial guards in armor and helmets escorted Pai Lupi's carriage out of the Taiji Palace and toward the north of the city. In the carriage, there were hundreds of officials and nobles in the imperial court. On both sides of the official road, there were countless people waiting there. When the carriage passed by, everyone knelt down and kowtowed. Not long after the carriage left, a carriage with a banner with the word Qin, under the protection of dozens of brocade guards, merged into the carriage and headed 30 miles north of the city. Today's big lineup was not for anything else but to welcome Li Wangyu's victorious return to the imperial court. During this period of time in Chang'an, the news of Li Wangyu's resurrection had already spread like wildfire. Originally, many people did not believe it, but the official bulletin of the government and the palace gate transcript clearly stated that the current dynasty's king of Qin, Li Wangyu, led 10,000 Tang troops to the northern desert grassland, and defeated the Shui Yantua Khanate's army of 200,000. Even the barbarian Khan and his son Xieli were captured alive by the army. Naturally, everyone had no choice but to believe this, and they were flabbergasted. When the imperial court spread the news that Li Wangyu had died in the desert, the civil and military officials in the imperial court all had their own thoughts. There were those who were sad, those who felt pity, and those who were secretly happy. However, when the news spread to the streets, the people in Chang'an cried and mourned for Li Wangyu. Countless people spontaneously tied white cloth to the doors of their houses as a sign of mourning, which was very surprising. Even Pai Lupi did not expect his nephew to have such prestige among the people. In fact, this was not strange. As the saying goes, everyone has a stick in their heart. The many things that Li Wangyu had done in the past few years seemed unremarkable, but in fact, they had benefited the people of Chang'an a lot. Whether it was building toilets or making public carriages for the people to travel, the people were grateful. As for the Wangyu charity hall that Li Wangyu and his playboys made every year from cleaning the toilets in the city, it had helped many lonely old people, women, and children. The Union Medical Hospital treated the poor people for free and did not take any money for medicine. How many people were grateful to it? Not to mention that Li Wangyu and his wife risked their lives in Yanling County of Shuzhou to put out the big head plague that made people pale at the mention of it. The imperial court officials might not remember these things, but the people of Chang'an engraved them in their hearts. At that time, not only were the people mourning, the scholars were also mourning. After all, Li Wangyu was a shameless plagiarism. He Daoist Academy of the Tang Dynasty Royal Academy and publicly taught Taoist ancestors unique skill. It could be said that in the literary world of the Tang dynasty, Li Wangyu had long been the idol of countless scholars. The news of Li Wangyu's death also made the scholars of the Tang dynasty write essays and poems to mourn. In the end, no one expected that more than a year later, there would be news from the desert that Li Wangyu was not dead. What was more unexpected was that this guy was not only alive, but also led the army to the Mabe grassland. In a short time, he destroyed the newly rising Zuyanchuo Khanate with only a little more than 10,000 soldiers. All kinds of news came one after another, but it dazzled the people and made them even more speechless. The imperial court was in a mess because of this. Li Wangyu led the army to attack the Zuyanchuo Khanate without the emperor's order, which naturally made the aristocratic families feel that they had something on him. For a time, the officials from the aristocratic families wrote letters to impeach Li Wangyu for indiscriminately using the army, plotting against the law, and destroying the harmonious relationship with the Zuyanchuo Khanate. A series of impeachment memorials gave Pai Lupi a headache. It was difficult for Pai Lupi to suppress this matter even if he wanted to. After all, Li Wangyu attacked the Xianxia Khanate without authorization, which was an indisputable fact. Pai Lupi was worried about the safety of his nephew, but he could not ignore the overall situation. He could only appease the officials and promise that Li Wangyu would be severely punished when he returned to the imperial court. Only then did he temporarily suppress the storm in the imperial court. However, no one had expected that Li Wangyu would be able to defeat the barbarian Khan with only 10,000 men. The battle outside the valley had already ended the moment Shuai Gui led the cavalry to break into the Xianxia Khanate's army. The barbarian Khan who had his escape route cut off finally realized his stupidity. But it was too late for regrets. No matter how the wolf cavalry suppressed, they could not stop the Xianxia Khanate's army from collapsing. In the battle outside the valley, 50,000 of Xianxia's 200,000 soldiers were beheaded, 30,000 were captured, and the rest fled. Li Wangyu also adhered to the spirit of beating a drowning dog, and immediately led his army in a counterattack, chasing them all the way. In the end, only 50,000 to 60,000 of Xianxia's 200,000 soldiers managed to escape back to the Overseer Mountain. But Li Wangyu did not let them go and sent Shuai Gui to break into the Overseer Mountain and capture the barbarian Khan and Xieli Ku alive. As for the nobles of the Xianxia Khanate, none of them escaped and were all captured. Tang Songling, who was imprisoned in the Overseer Mountain by the barbarian Khan, only realized that the Xianxia Khanate was destroyed just like that when the Tang army broke into the Overseer Mountain and rescued him. Not to mention how happy Tang Songling was and how he crazily flattered Li Wangyu. When the news reached Chang'an, it scared Pai Lupi and the officials. After confirming that the news was accurate, Pai Lupi could not care less about his dignity as an emperor and laughed in front of the officials. Although the Xianxia Khanate and the Tang dynasty had a good relationship, and the barbarian Khan had once asked Pai Lupi to marry the princess of the Tang dynasty. However, there was no such thing as true friendship between countries. Pai Lupi granted the barbarian Khan the title of Zurija Khan and acknowledged the existence of the Xianxia Khanate only because the Tang dynasty did not have enough power and wanted to use the Xianxia Khanate to involve the Turks. The Xianxia Khanate stretched from the Daxing and mountains to the east, to the Altai mountains to the west, and to the Selenge River to the north. With such a large territory, it was impossible for Pai Lupi and the officials to not covet it. So in the 19th year of Zhengguan, after the death of the barbarian Khan, the Tang dynasty immediately sent troops to destroy the Grassland Khanate and brought it into the territory of the Tang dynasty. Now Li Wangyu had conquered the grassland of Mabe with only 10,000 people. It would be strange if Pai Lupi was not ecstatic. After Pai Lupi discussed with Fang Xianling, Zhang Sunwuji, Gao Shilian, and the other big shots, they did not even wait for Li Wangyu to return to the court and directly sent a large number of officials to the grassland of Mabe. The grassland of Mabe was divided into 13 prefectures, with prefectures and prefectures. The Yanran Protectorate was set up to govern the grassland of Mabe. At this point, the grassland of Mabe was swallowed into the stomach of the Tang dynasty. Originally, even if the Xianxia Khanate was short-lived, it would have existed for 10 to 20 years. But now, it was extremely short-lived. In just a few years, it no longer existed. Li Wangyu's battle changed the situation and made the aristocratic family speechless. In the court, no one mentioned the impeachment memorials anymore. The Xianxia Khanate was destroyed. What was the point of impeachment? Expanding the territory, no matter which dynasty it was a great achievement. As for destroying the relationship with the Xianxia Khanate, that was even more nonsense. The barbarian Khan and the nobles of the Xianxia Khanate were all captured alive by the Tang army. Who cared about what they thought? Today, Li Wangyu led the Tang army to victory and returned to the court. Pai Lupi personally led the civil and military officials 30 li out of the city to welcome him back. Chapter 1053. In the autumn of the 5th year of Zhengguan, Li Wangyu set out from Chang'an to the western regions. Who knew that after going around in circles, when he returned to Chang'an, it was already the summer of the 7th year of Zhengguan. Nearly 2 years later, when Li Wangyu led the army back to the Tang dynasty and was about to reach Chang'an, he could not help but feel a sense of homesickness and unconsciously became anxious and nervous. Especially when he thought of Su Chongqing and his son and daughter, Li Wangyu's heart could not help but beat faster. If it were not for a messenger reporting that Pai Lupi would personally lead the civil and military officials to welcome the army's triumphant return 30 li outside the city, he would even have the impulse to abandon the army and lead Niu Wu and the others back to Dingzhou village. Glory and congratulations could not compare to his desire to go home. Including Cheng Chumo and the other playboys, Shuiren Gui and the Tang soldiers all became excited when they heard that His Majesty would personally go 30 li outside the city to welcome the army's triumphant return. Their armor was polished again and again, their swords were polished until they were shiny, and their robes were so neat that not even a wrinkle could be seen. Only Li Wangyu secretly cursed in his heart, thinking that Pai Lupi's actions were superfluous, delaying his time to go home to see his wife and children. Li Wangyu secretly swore that from now on, he would not care about the affairs of the imperial court even if he was beaten to death. Pai Lupi could do whatever he wanted. Whether it was conquering Liaodong in the east or Tufan in the west, he would not accompany or participate in it. The greatest enjoyment was having a wife and children on a warm bed. All that talk about making a name for yourself and leaving your name in the annals of history was nonsense. The unambitious Li Wangyu suppressed his eagerness to go home and finally saw Pai Lupi's imperial carriage that had been waiting 30 li outside of Chang'an. Although he was secretly cursing Pai Lupi for delaying his time, Li Wangyu followed the rules and obediently rolled off the horse and bowed to Pai Lupi. Pai Lupi laughed and helped Li Wangyu up. He carefully sized him up and nodded in satisfaction. "Zio, I haven't seen you for 2 years. You've become darker and thinner. I'm very happy that you can return safely. You don't blame me for almost killing you, right?" Li Wangyu quickly bowed. "Your Majesty is too polite. This is my duty. How can I blame your Majesty? It's good that you don't blame me. We didn't expect that when we sent you to the western regions, you would conquer the Mabe dynasty." Li Wangyu was a little embarrassed. It was an accident, an accident. I didn't expect this either. This was also an accident. Originally, Li Wangyu only wanted to help Di and the Hurut tribe vent their anger. He didn't expect that after a while, he actually destroyed the Zuyanshuo Khanate. Pai Lupi had already understood what happened in the grasslands of the north through Mi Tuo's report. He didn't ask any more. After the two of them exchanged a few words, Fang Xianling, Zhangsan Wuji, Gao Shilian, Yuqi Jingda, and the other big shots came forward one after another, congratulating and exchanging pleasantries. Li Wangyu didn't have the mood to talk nonsense with Pai Lupi and these big shots. His mind had already flown to Dingzhou village. However, he also knew that it wouldn't be easy to get away today. He still had a lot of things to do. While he was absent-mindedly greeting the big shots, Li Wangyu's body suddenly froze. His eyes stared straight at the back of the crowd. Seeing him like this, Pai Lupi, Fang Xianling, and the others looked at each other and smiled. They didn't say anything. They just stepped aside and made a path for the people behind them. At the back of the crowd, Su Chongqing, who was dressed splendidly with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face, slowly walked forward. Wangyu. Before Su Chongqing could finish his sentence, Li Wangyu couldn't care less about shocking the world. He directly reached out and hugged her tightly in his arms. "Chongqing. I'm back. I'm back." Su Chongqing, who was holding back her tears, couldn't hold back anymore. She also hugged Li Wangyu tightly and cried, "Wangyu, you bastard. You left for 2 years without any news. I thought you." Yes, it's all my fault. I won't leave you in the future." Li Wangyu's nose was also sore. If it weren't for the fact that he was in front of Pai Lupi and the others, and that he still had some scruples about his image, he was afraid that he would have cried out by now. Originally, when he watched those romantic TV dramas in his previous life, he always felt that it was too pretentious for the male and female protagonists to cry when they met. But the moment he saw Su Chongqing, he realized that some things just couldn't be helped. The two of them hugged each other as if there was no one else around, which made Pai Lupi and the others feel a little embarrassed. Although the people of the Tang dynasty were open-minded, it was still a little embarrassing for a couple to hug like this in public, even if it was a couple. Pai Lupi couldn't help but cough, which woke Su Chongqing up. After all, she was a woman. Being surrounded by so many people like this, she was a little shy. She quickly pushed Li Wangyu gently. Li Wangyu didn't mind. In any case, he was thick-skinned. Hearing Pai Lupi's cough, he even glared at him in dissatisfaction. "I'm hugging my wife. What the hell are you coughing for?" The two of them calmed down. Just as they separated, they saw three similarly excited beautiful girls walk out from behind Su Chongqing. With tears in their eyes, they respectfully bowed to Li Wangyu. "This concubine greets Lord Husband." Lord Husband went on an expedition to the northern desert, plowing the courtyard and sweeping the acupoints. "It must have been hard on you." Their words caused Li Wangyu to stare blankly. Bridgebean sack. What did they call him? Lord Husband? Oh my God. Li Wangyu naturally recognized these three beautiful girls. They were his personal maidservant Perrin, the European girl Aphrodite, and Pai Lupi's eldest daughter, Princess Changle Li Lizzie. It was very normal for Aphrodite to call him Lord Husband. Li Wangyu had already taken Aphrodite into his room. Although he hadn't had the time to give her a status, the relationship between the two was worthy of such a title. Perrin was no longer the 12 or 13-year-old loli that he had first transmigrated to the Tang dynasty. Now that 5 years had passed, the little loli had grown into a beautiful young lady in the prime of her life. Su Chongqing had already agreed to let Li Wangyu take Perrin into his room as a concubine. Therefore, Li Wangyu didn't find it strange that Perrin called him Lord Husband. But Changle called him Lord Husband. What kind of situation was this? Although Li Wangyu had been forced to agree to Pai Lupi's unequal treaty in the Taiji Palace in order to marry Su Chongqing, that was actually just a delaying tactic. Li Wangyu didn't believe that Changle would be willing to marry him. Even if Pai Lupi and Empress Zhongsun were willing, it was still impossible. People with the same surname would not marry. Moreover, he had taken Changle as his disciple, and the two were relatives. Moreover, he had already officially married her. In this way, if Pai Lupi insisted on marrying Changle, the aristocratic clans and Confucian scholars would probably spit the shit out of Pai Lupi. Even Wei Zheng, the goat-nosed duke who was loyal and devoted to Pai Lupi, would cause a ruckus in the Taiji Palace and teach Pai Lupi the meaning of moral principles and ethics. As a result, although Li Wangyu had promised Pai Lupi, he had never considered this matter. In any case, if Pai Lupi couldn't handle the aristocratic clans, they couldn't blame him. How could Li Wangyu have known that because he had gone missing in the desert for over a year and was misunderstood by the court as having died, Changle's marriage to him had actually been accomplished without any hiccups? After Mitua and the other debauches found Li Wangyu, they forgot to tell him that during the time he had gone missing, his wife, Su Chongqing, had actually married Princess Changle and brought her back to the Prince of Qin's household in one go. She had also taken in 2 children while she was at it. Seeing Li Wangyu standing there in a daze, Su Chongqing reacted. She couldn't help but secretly extend 2 slender fingers and pinch Li Wangyu's waist. She was also somewhat dizzy. Other women were afraid that their husbands were unfaithful, but she, as a professional elite in the future, had actually helped her husband marry a wife and take in 2 concubines. Thinking of this, Su Chongqing felt her face burn with incomparable hidden bitterness. Chapter 1054. After Li Wangyu finally figured out the ins and outs of the matter from Su Chongqing, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at Pai Lupi with eyes full of hidden bitterness. He really didn't know whether marrying a 12 or 13-year-old little girl was considered marrying a wife or helping Pai Lupi raise his daughter. Especially when he heard Chang'e call him husband, Li Wangyu felt even more guilty. Even he himself felt flustered and embarrassed. But what was done could not be undone. It was too late to say anything. He couldn't drive Chang'e back to Taiji Palace, could he? If he did that, wouldn't Pai Lupi fight him to the death? Rubbing his nose, Li Wangyu could only grit his teeth and squeeze out a smile at Chang'e. My wife, I'm sorry. With tears in her eyes, Chang'e smiled like a flower and shook her head desperately. As long as my husband can return safely, my sister and I will be satisfied. Li Wangyu really didn't know how to respond to this. In front of Pai Lupi, he could only laugh dryly. He habitually reached out to touch Chang'e's head, but felt that it was inappropriate, so he could only withdraw his hand awkwardly. As for Aphrodite and Perrin, seeing their Langjun like this, they snickered. Li Wangyu was so angry that he glared at them fiercely. Pai Lupi didn't notice Li Wangyu's expression, nor did he feel that there was anything wrong with his daughter marrying Li Wangyu at such a young age. After all, this guy had married Empress Zhongsun at such a young age. Of course, Pai Lupi actually only allowed the officials to set fires, but not the common people. Because as early as the first year of Zhengguan, Pai Lupi issued an imperial edict to set the marriage age of men and women in the Tang dynasty, 20 years old for men and 15 years old for women. It wasn't until the Kaiyuan era that Emperor Xuanzong of Tang changed the marriage age of the Tang dynasty to 15 years old for men and 13 years old for women in order to increase the population. Now Li Wangyu was old enough, but Chang'e was still a few years away from 15. Of course, no one would ask Pai Lupi for this reason. Li Wangyu's resurrection caused all the officials in the imperial court to have a lot of complaints. Just his title as the Duke of Qin was enough to give the other officials a headache. As for the matter of Li Wangyu marrying two princesses by accident, no one, including Wei Zheng, bothered to get involved. In any case, Chang'e had already married into the Duke of Qin's manor. Even if they were sick of her, they couldn't say anything. Li Wangyu also had a headache about this, but he was too lazy to think too much about it. If he married her, then so be it. He could just treat it as a nurturing game. After a few years, Chang'e would eventually grow up. Thinking of this, Li Wangyu, the outwardly passionate man, couldn't help but steal a glance at Chang'e. He was a little excited. Pai Lupi led the officials out of the city to welcome the army's triumphant return. The ceremony was very complicated. In addition to the inspection of the army, the offering of prisoners, and many other matters, it took a full 2 to 4 hours before the army and Pai Lupi's imperial carriage set off again, heading towards Chang'an city. Pai Lupi didn't make things difficult for the barbarian Khan and Xieli Khan, as well as Shui Yintuo's nobles. After a round of reprimanding, the barbarian Khan and the others were even brought to the imperial ancestral temple for Pai Lupi to boast about their achievements to their ancestors. Then, like Xieli Khan, they would be conferred an official position by Pai Lupi and be raised in Chang'an city. Li Wangyu didn't need to worry about these matters. In fact, Li Wangyu now wanted to bring his wives back to Dingzhou village. He didn't even want to enter Chang'an city. However, the army had triumphed and returned. How could Pai Lupi let him go so easily? In the Taiji Palace, the imperial banquet had already been prepared. Pai Lupi wanted to hold a big banquet for the officials to celebrate. Li Wangyu couldn't refuse. He could only helplessly let Pai Lupi do as he pleased. With all kinds of banquets, eating and drinking, as well as all kinds of complicated ceremonies, Li Wangyu stayed in Chang'an city for a full 3 days before he could finally leave. During this period, just dealing with his friends and family, as well as his disciples, made Li Wangyu so tired that he almost collapsed. He felt that it was more tiring than riding a horse and fighting in the grassland. Although Li Wangyu had made a great contribution on his return from the western region's desert north, Pai Lupi didn't give him any more rewards. He only rewarded him with some gold, silver, and jewels. It wasn't that Pai Lupi was stingy. It was that when he conferred Li Wangyu the title of King of Qin and married Chang'e to him, he had already rewarded him to the extreme. Even if Pai Lupi wanted to reward him, he couldn't. Above the title of prince, there was only the throne in the Taiji Palace. Could Pai Lupi give his throne to Li Wangyu? On the other hand, Cheng Chumo and his group of foppish sons got a lot of benefits. Pai Lupi was not stingy with titles. Almost all the foppish sons were conferred titles, which made them very happy. They held a big banquet to show off. Li Wangyu didn't pay attention to the foppish sons' invitations. After he finished delegating the affairs in the imperial court and returned the military power to Pai Lupi, he couldn't wait to lead Niu Wu and others out of Chang'an city and rushed back to Dingzhou village. Li Wangyu couldn't help but be anxious. After returning to Chang'an, he only saw his wife once. He didn't even have time to be intimate with her. What's more, he hadn't even met his twins yet. When Su Chongqing and Chang'e went to meet Li Wangyu, they didn't take the children with them because they were too young. They were afraid that they would get sick. This made Li Wangyu even more restless in Chang'an city and couldn't wait to fly to Dingzhou village immediately. He made up his mind that if there wasn't a comet hitting the earth, he wouldn't go to Chang'an city. He would hide in Prince Qin's mansion in Dingzhou village and live his life behind closed doors. He would hide in the small building and live his life there. He didn't care about winter, summer, or spring. His wife, children, and warm bed were the life he wanted to live. Li Wangyu galloped all the way to Dingzhou village. Li Wangyu could already see from afar that there were many people waiting at the village entrance to welcome him. The old village chief had not seen him for 2 years, but he looked older. The old housekeeper Li Heng was supported by his wife. Looking at his Lang Jun, he was so excited that tears flowed down his face. He couldn't speak clearly. The men and women of Dingzhou village, old and young, all came out to welcome him. The servants and maids in his residence were all present as well. They all came to welcome the return of their Lang Jun. However, Li Wangyu didn't have time to greet them. His eyes were fixed on the 2 children in Su Chongqing's arms. He didn't wait for the steed to come to a stop before he impatiently jumped off the horse's back and rushed to the front of Su Chongqing. He reached out to hold the 2 little fellows but was afraid that he would hurt the children. For a moment, he was at a loss and didn't know where to put his hands and feet. Chongqing, are they my son and daughter? Su Chongqing stared at him angrily. What do you think? Who will they be? Hee, I didn't mean that. Li Wangyu rubbed his hands awkwardly. Which one is the elder sister? Which one is the younger brother? When Li Wangyu left Chang'an, Su Chongqing was only 2 months pregnant. 8 months later, she gave birth to a pair of children in the summer of the 6th year of Zhengguan. They were just 1 year old. Li Wangyu couldn't tell the gender of the 1-year-old children. Su Chongqing rolled her beautiful eyes at him. The one on the left is the elder sister, and the one on the right is the younger brother. The smile on Li Wangyu's face widened. He reached out to hold the children. Good daughter, brat, call me daddy. He didn't care whether there was a father in the Tang dynasty or not. In Li Wangyu's mind, nothing was better than calling him daddy. The 2 little brats were originally staring curiously at the stranger in front of them with their big black eyes. Suddenly, they saw Li Wangyu reach out to hug them. As if they had made an agreement, the siblings turned their heads at the same time and plunged into Su Chongqing's arms. Then, they burst into tears. Obviously, Li Wangyu's action scared the 2 children. Li Wangyu withdrew his hands awkwardly, and his face was full of pain. Damn it, these 2 brats didn't give him any face at all. Su Chongqing hurriedly coaxed the children and didn't forget to roll her eyes at Li Wangyu again. Humph, now you know. Let's see if you still run around in the future. Look, even the children don't recognize you. Chang'e, Aphrodite, and Perrin also covered their mouths and snickered. Li Wangyu was so angry that he almost wanted to beat them up. It was so infuriating. They didn't take him, the head of the family, seriously at all. Tonight, the family law must be enforced. Chapter 1055. Li Wangyu liked to stay in the Duke of Qin's residence in Dingzhou village instead of Chang'an city. One of the most important reasons was that this place didn't have the endless sound of the morning drum. As people of the later generation, it was common for them to like to sleep in. Whether it was Li Wangyu or Su Chongqing, it was the same for both of them. The servants and maids of the Duke of Qin's residence had long gotten used to this bad habit of their master's wife. Therefore, every morning, only Li Wangyu and Su Chongqing were still asleep. Everyone in the residence was very quiet when they did their work, afraid that they would wake their masters up. Li Wangyu only slowly woke up when the sun had already risen high in the sky. Soon after, he reached out to hug Su Chongqing beside him and very skillfully reached his hand into his beautiful superior's bosom to play with her. After giving birth, Su Chongqing insisted on breastfeeding herself, and her breasts had become even more impressive. Li Wangyu felt that her breasts were comparable to that European girl, Aphrodite, and he couldn't bear to part with them. After returning from home for 2 years, Li Wangyu was already on the verge of going crazy from boredom. Last night, he had even tossed around with Su Chongqing for most of the night before falling asleep. With his interruption, his beautiful superior in his arms naturally woke up and slapped his hand in annoyance. "You're so annoying. You're already being naughty early in the morning. Hee, I'll be punished by the heavens if I'm naughty with my wife." Li Wangyu had a glib tongue as he teased, "Wife, time to get up and do your morning exercise." Su Chongqing's pretty face immediately turned red. "Stop fooling around. The maids will come in soon." Hee, they wouldn't dare. "I've already instructed them not to enter the bedroom without a summons." Li Wangyu didn't allow for any explanation as he flipped over and pressed his beautiful superior on top of him. Su Chongqing subconsciously let out a soft cry before her red lips were covered by Li Wangyu's. Spring filled the entire room. It wasn't until late in the morning that the husband and wife finally got out of bed. Under the service of the maidservants, they freshened up and changed their clothes. Su Chongqing had the maidservants bring the 2 children over and glared at Li Wangyu. "Don't come into my room tonight. Go sleep in Avro's room." "Oh right, Ji and Badger are almost 1 year old. Since you're back, I'll leave the matter of naming the children to you." "Humph, if it doesn't sound good, just you wait. Don't learn from Li Shimin. I'm so angry. Look at what kind of lousy pet name Li Shimin gave our child." According to the Tang custom, after a child was born, they would first be given a pet name. Only when the child was 1 year old would they be officially given a name. When Li Wangyu's twins were born, Li Wangyu was still playing with mud in the desert robbers' camp. Therefore, Pai Lupi unceremoniously gave the 2 children pet names in the name of his uncle. However, Li Wangyu couldn't help but want to beat someone up when he heard this nickname. His eldest daughter's pet name was Ji. Ji meant pig. Ji was a little pig. His son's pet name was Badger, a type of mustelid. F*ck, what kind of lousy pet names were these? Not to mention Su Chongqing, even Li Wangyu wanted to curse when he heard it. However, when he thought about the pet names Pai Lupi had given his children, Li Wangyu felt relieved. Li Tai's pet name was Qing Ke, which was a type of bird. Li Ji's pet name was Ji Nu, which meant a little pheasant. Princess Jinyang, who would be born in the future, was Ji, which meant a little rhinoceros. Li Wangyu deeply suspected that Pai Lupi was running a zoo. The pet names he gave his children were all animals. However, since the names were given by Pai Lupi, although Su Chongqing and Li Wangyu despised them, the officials and nobles were envious. In the residence, whether it was the old butler, Li Heng, or the servant girls, they all felt that it was a great honor. In this regard, Su Chongqing could only pinch his nose and accept it. During this year, he had gotten used to calling them Ji and Badger every day. However, the two in-laws did not dare to let Pai Lupi name the children's names. After Li Wangyu returned as a father, the responsibility of naming the children naturally fell on his head. Li Wangyu also had a headache when it came to naming. It was not a day or two that he was incompetent at naming. Otherwise, he would not have named the grandson of carpenter Lu in the village Lu Dehua. After Su Chongqing gave him this arduous yet glorious task, this guy's brain was about to explode. His mind was filled with all kinds of famous people with the surname Li in history. Li Bai, Li Qingzhao, Li Shangyin, Li Bingbing. Li Kuei, bah. What the hell was Li Kuei? If he dared to say that he named his son Li Kuei, Su Chongqing would probably immediately pick up a knife and fight him to death. Li Wangyu pulled his hair worriedly. Why was it so difficult to give a name? It was easier to give a name with a family tree. The surname and the seniority were all decided by the ancestors. In the end, he just had to think of a word. However, in the Tang dynasty, such a name was rare. Most of the names were single words. Naturally, it had nothing to do with the family tree. Li Wangyu really could not think of a name for the child, so he simply ordered people to bring him the Book of Songs, Chu Ci, the Analects of Confucius, and the Book of Changes. In the future, there was a saying on the internet, the Book of Songs for women, Chu Ci for men, Wen Luanyu for men, Wu Zhouyi for men, which was the way to name a child. Since Li Wangyu could not think of a name by himself, he was ready to follow the picture and search for the answer by flipping through the books. He almost flipped through the 4 books and finally picked out 2 names that Su Chongqing reluctantly nodded his head. The eldest daughter was named Li Zipei, which was taken from the Book of Songs, Qingqing Zipei, lingering in my thoughts. The second son was named Li Ji, which meant handsome horse. After sending the names of the 2 children to the Zongjing Temple for registration, Li Wangyu considered that he had completed the task and concentrated on playing with the 2 children. Since the 2 children were born, they had never seen him as a father. Naturally, they were not close to him. Every time Li Wangyu wanted to carry his children, all he got in return was his daughter and son crying loudly, making him look very miserable. Li Wangyu could only shamelessly walk around in front of his children, trying to get familiar with them as soon as possible. It had to be said that Li Wangyu was actually somewhat biased towards girls. Of the 2 children, his daughter was always his precious daughter, his biological daughter, and his son was a stinky brat. After all, the daughter was a little cotton-padded jacket, a lover from a previous life. As for the son, well, he was probably an enemy from a previous life and wanted to take revenge in this life. Under Li Wangyu's efforts, it took him 2 to 3 days to finally make the 2 children, who were just learning to speak, accept his existence. Li Wangyu was so happy that he carried his daughter around the residence every day. Su Chongqing was also so angry that his teeth itched. This was because this fellow actually only carried his daughter and was never willing to carry his son. A daughter slave like Li Wangyu could not be more normal in later generations, but in the eyes of the Tang people, it was somewhat shocking. Even though Pai Lupi doted on his daughter, in terms of the status of the few legitimate children in his heart, Li Qingqian, Li Tai, and Li Ji were naturally more important. In the eyes of the old butler Li Heng and the others, the future master of the king of Qin's mansion was Xiao Lang, Li Ji, and the young lady, Li Zipei, would get married sooner or later. Naturally, it was impossible for her to become the master of the king of Qin's mansion. Li Wangyu did not care what others thought. In short, he doted on Ji to the point that even Chang'e, Perrin, and Aphrodite were slightly jealous. For several months, Li Wangyu did not care about what was going on in the outside world. He hid in his king of Qin's mansion leisurely and was not even willing to set foot in Chang'an city. During this period, he officially took Perrin as his concubine. Back then, the little girl had just become someone's wife. Li Wangyu enjoyed the blessing of having 2 wives. As for Chang'e, Li Wangyu was not so perverted. Naturally, he did not dare to provoke this little girl. Although Chang'e was nominally his princess consort, no matter what, he had to wait for at least a few years before Li Wangyu dared to do such a beastly thing. Otherwise, Su Chongqing would definitely fight him to the death. If the days continued like this, Li Wangyu would not be tired of it. But the trees wanted to be quiet, but the wind did not stop. Li Wangyu hid in Dingzhou village and did not see outsiders, but trouble came knocking on his door. And this time, the one who caused trouble was his eldest disciple, Ma Zhou. Chapter 1056. Ever since the incident at the Xuanwu Gate, when Pai Lupi killed Li Jiancheng and forced his father, Li Yuan, to abdicate, the relationship between the father and son had become very strange. There was only one chair, who didn't want to sit on it. After Li Yuan, the retired emperor, was forced to abdicate, although he lived in the Taiji palace and was served with good food and drink, he was the only one who knew the grievances in his heart. Although Pai Lupi often went to Li Yuan's palace to greet him, in reality, the conflict between Li Yuan and Pai Lupi had long been difficult to reconcile. There was no such thing as a father-son relationship. Pai Lupi was ruthless enough to kill his brother, but he was also not a kind person. In front of imperial power, there was no such thing as a personal invitation. After Pai Lupi ascended the throne, in order to win the hearts of the people and to show his filial piety to the world, he was respectful to Li Yuan on the surface. At the very least, in Li Yuan's sleeping palace, there was no lack of all kinds of stunning beauties. In history, between Li Yuan's abdication and his death in the 9th year of Zhengguan, Li Yuan had given Pai Lupi more than 30 younger brothers and sisters in just 9 years. He was like a human seeding machine. Pai Lupi would also invite Li Yuan to attend some important occasions, acting like a filial son in front of all the officials and officials. Originally, this matter had nothing to do with Li Wangyu. He knew all kinds of dirty things in the imperial family and had no intention of getting involved. After he returned from the grasslands of the North Desert, he even asked Pai Lupi to resign from the title of King of Qin, but he was rejected by Pai Lupi. Li Wangyu knew his own weight. He only wanted to be a rich and idle person and live out his life well. He had no intention of getting involved in court politics. He was inexplicably conferred the title of King of Qin by Pai Lupi. It was not a good thing for his status to suddenly rise so high. After he returned to Chang'an City, he had been hiding in Dingzhou village. Apart from his laziness, it was also to avoid taboos. Originally, he was just a lowly prefectural duke, so he could speak and do things without any restrictions. However, after being conferred the title of Prince of Qin, Li Wangyu felt uneasy. He was afraid that he would say something wrong and cause Pai Lupi to be wary. Accompanying a monarch was like accompanying a tiger. This was not a joke. Although Li Wangyu and Pai Lupi, the emperor of the Tang dynasty, had always had a harmonious relationship, and Pai Lupi even cared for him a lot, who could guarantee this kind of thing? Li Qingxian was Pai Lupi's son, and had been made the crown prince since he was young. But when the Pai Lupi's throne was threatened, what could Li Qingxian do? Li Wangyu did not think that his position in Pai Lupi's heart was higher than Li Qingxian's. Now that the emperor and his minister were so harmonious, it was only because Li Wangyu had shown outstanding talent, was young, and did not have a high status. He was not a threat to Pai Lupi at all. In addition, Pai Lupi was now in the prime of his life, so he would not be suspicious of him. However, Li Wangyu also knew that as Pai Lupi grew older, he would do a lot of foolish things. He now had a big family with sons and daughters, so Li Wangyu did not dare to gamble, nor could he afford to gamble. Therefore, after returning from the grasslands of the North Desert, Li Wangyu made up his mind to speak less and do less in the future. He would try his best to eliminate his presence in the imperial court and just be a rich and idle king. However, it was still the same saying. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind will not stop. Li Wangyu wanted to calm down, but his eldest disciple, Ma Zhou, had caused him trouble that was neither too big nor too small. In history, in the 8th year of Zhengguan, Ma Zhou, who was then the imperial censor, wrote a memorial to Pai Lupi, asking Pai Lupi to build a palace north of Taiji Palace for the retired emperor, Li Yuan, to serve the retired emperor and enjoy his old age. This was the famous Daming Palace in the history of the Tang dynasty. Pai Lupi, in order to show to the world that he and Li Yuan were filial, nodded and agreed to this matter. At first, this palace was named Yong'an Palace, and in the 9th year of Zhengguan, it was renamed Daming Palace. However, at that time, the Tang dynasty was not very strong. In addition, 1 year after the construction of Daming Palace, Li Yuan suddenly died of illness. Pai Lupi ordered the construction of Daming Palace to be suspended. It was not until Li Ji ascended the throne that the construction of Daming Palace was restarted after 28 years. In the 3rd year of Longshua, Emperor Gaozong of Tang, Li Ji, moved from Taiji Palace to Daming Palace. From then on, the political center of the Tang dynasty changed from Taiji Palace to Daming Palace. Logically speaking, although the current financial situation of the Tang dynasty was not very good, Pai Lupi wanted to build Daming Palace to show filial respect to Li Yuan, so no one could say no. However, the problem was that this matter was not proposed by Pai Lupi, but by Ma Zhou. As a result, they had poked a hornet's nest. Unlike in history, when Ma Zhou, as the imperial censor, wrote a memorial to build Daming Palace, those aristocratic families and the officials of the imperial court were too lazy to participate in this matter. Hence, the matter of building Daming Palace did not cause any waves. However, now that Ma Zhou was Li Wangyou's eldest disciple, whether it was Pai Lupi, the aristocratic families, or the officials of the imperial court, they all treated Ma Zhou as Li Wangyou's direct disciple. They treated his idea as Li Wangyou's idea. After Ma Zhou handed a memorial to Pai Lupi in Taiji Palace, asking to build Daming Palace, it instantly caused a huge wave. The aristocratic families could not find an excuse to attack Li Wangyou, but Ma Zhou's memorial gave them a reason. Under the instructions of Wang Renyu, Zheng Yuanshou, and the others, the aristocratic family officials crazily wrote memorials to attack Ma Zhou for having evil intentions and deceiving the emperor. In the memorials that the aristocratic family officials handed in, they listed Ma Zhou's various crimes. To a certain extent, the memorials from the aristocratic families were not wrong. Now that the Tang dynasty had just recuperated for a few years, the treasury was slightly full, and it was the time for many things to be done. Now that they had conquered the western regions and the northern desert grassland, they needed a lot of funds from the imperial court. At this time, Ma Zhou actually dared to persuade His Majesty to build a palace. He deserved to die. In the end, it was all about money. According to the contents of Ma Zhou's memorial, the cost of building Daming Palace was naturally a huge astronomical figure. In history, Li Ji and Wu Zetian built Daming Palace. They recruited 100,000 craftsmen and spent the taxes of 15 states. When Penglai Palace was built, they even stopped giving the officials a month's salary to fund the construction of Penglai Palace. Later, several generations of Tang emperors also spent a lot of money to repair and expand Daming Palace, which lasted for 100 years. Therefore, it was really difficult to calculate how much money was spent to build Daming Palace. In short, it was an astronomical figure that was difficult to calculate. Not to mention the aristocratic families used this to attack Ma Zhou and Li Wangyou. In fact, even Fang Xianling, Gao Shilian, and others did not agree with spending a lot of money to build this palace. It's just that everyone was worried about Pai Lupi and Li Wangyou's face, so they didn't follow and hit them when they were down, but they also kept their mouths shut and didn't help either side. Pai Lupi was also a little hesitant. On the one hand, he felt that it was indeed right to build a new palace for his father, Li Yuan. On the other hand, he was also a little distressed about the money. Over the years, the imperial family had done business with Li Wangyou and earned a lot of gold and copper coins. He also felt a little distressed about using all this money to build a palace. But if he supported the aristocratic families, then Pai Lupi would definitely not be willing. So he simply did not express his opinion and let Ma Zhou and the other aristocratic family officials argue. Li Wangyou's disciples would definitely help Ma Zhou. Whether it was Yan Liben, Lu Rengui, or Sheng Guanyi, they stood firmly behind Ma Zhou and supported him. As a result, the court became more and more lively, and it was noisy every day. Pai Lupi also had a headache about this, so he simply issued a decree and ordered people to run to Dingzhou village in Hu County and drag out Li Wangyu, who was living peacefully in Qin Wang's mansion, and order him to come to the court to solve this matter. Tomorrow, I will go out with my friends for 2 days. Although I brought my mobile phone and Bluetooth keyboard, I may not have time to write. If I don't update, then this old man is asking for leave. Chapter 1057. After Li Wangyu finally figured out what happened in the imperial court, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. With regards to Ma Zhou's memorial, he was gnashing his teeth in hatred. If he had nothing better to do, why did he get involved in the imperial court's affairs? Who cares if Pai Lupi is filial to me? What does it have to do with you? If Ma Zhou wasn't in front of him, Li Wangyu would have the urge to beat him up. In Li Wangyu's opinion, he did not support the construction of the Daming Palace. Li Yuan wouldn't be able to enjoy it. Even if he could, how could the huge Taiji Palace not be enough for Pai Lupi and his family? Wasn't building the Daming Palace with the blood and sweat of the people of the Tang dynasty? Weren't the people of the Tang dynasty the ones working hard? That bastard Ma Zhou actually wrote a memorial to urge Pai Lupi to build the palace. He really didn't know his own name. Actually, Li Wangyu also remembered this matter in his heart. He also had plans to find time to find Ma Zhou and give him a warning. He wanted to warn him not to rashly submit a letter to Li Er next year. After all, in history, Ma Zhou only wrote a memorial to Pai Lupi in the 8th year of Zhenguan era to ask for the construction of the Daming Palace. In the end, for some reason, Ma Zhou wrote a memorial to Pai Lupi a year earlier, which caught Li Wangyu unprepared. He fiercely scolded Ma Zhou a few times, then sat back at his desk with a bitter face, thinking about how to clean up Ma Zhou's mess. After all, he was Ma Zhou's teacher, so he had to take care of this matter. But how to take care of it gave him a headache. Supporting Ma Zhou's memorial and Pai Lupi's construction of the Daming Palace was something that Li Wangyu couldn't get over in his heart. Even if Pai Lupi stopped working in the future, wouldn't that little brat Li Ji and Mei Nyang continue to build the palace? Recruit 100,000 craftsmen. What couldn't those craftsmen do? Why did they have to build a palace for the emperor? The evil feudal ruling class. He complained in his heart, forgetting that he, Li Wangyu, was now part of the feudal ruling class, and in terms of nobility, he was the one with the highest rank. But if he didn't support Ma Zhou, not only would it be unreasonable, but he also wouldn't be able to explain it to Pai Lupi. What's more, he didn't want the aristocratic families to be complacent. For a moment, Li Wangyu was really worried. He didn't know what to do in the imperial court tomorrow. While he was worrying, Su Chongqing and Chang'e each carried a child into the study, chatting and laughing. Seeing his sad face, they couldn't help but be curious. "Husband, what's going on? Why are you so worried?" Under Li Wangyu's signal, Chang'e handed little Ji to him and asked. Li Wangyu let out a long sigh. He recounted the events of the day when Pai Lupi sent someone to deliver the edict, when Ma Zhou entered the memorial to build the new palace, as well as the various events that transpired in the court. "Chang'e, do you think that bastard Ma Zhou has nothing better to do? Why did he urge your father to build a stupid palace?" Chang'e didn't understand these imperial court matters, and she didn't know how to answer. After all, she was just a little girl. Su Chongqing, on the other hand, glared at Li Wangyu angrily. "Why are you swearing in front of the child?" Li Wangyu finally reacted. He quickly lowered his head and teased his daughter in his arms. Ji didn't hear it, right? "Come, call me father." Father. Between a pair of children, Li Wangyu obviously preferred his daughter. Su Chongqing was too lazy to complain about this daughter-slave. He directly stuffed his son, Badger, into Li Wangyu's arms. "If you continue to be so biased, be careful that Badger won't take care of you when he grows up." "How dare he?" I'll beat him to death. Li Wangyu couldn't help but stare. Su Chongqing rolled his eyes at him and was too lazy to say anything more. He reached out and picked up the copy of Ma Zhou's memorial from the desk and read it. After a long while, Su Chongqing suddenly said without rhyme or reason, "Wangyu, it seems that real estate development is very profitable, right?" Profitable? Li Wangyu was a little dumbfounded. He didn't understand Su Chongqing's meaning. This was the Tang dynasty, not the later generations. How could real estate make money? Su Chongqing said without rhyme or reason, "I heard that there are more and more merchants and officials in Chang'an City now. The houses near Taiji Palace in the north of the city are also getting more and more expensive. Wangyu, if we want to sell the house in Kaihua Square now, it will be much more expensive than when you bought it, right?" Su Chongqing's words were like a bolt of lightning that suddenly illuminated Li Wangyu's eyes. He suddenly stood up. "Chongqing, what do you mean?" "Humph, think about it yourself. Sister Changle, let's go." After saying this, Su Chongqing pulled Changle out of the door, leaving Li Wangyu holding his son and daughter and excitedly pacing in the study. In this case, it seems to be very promising. After thinking for a while, Li Wangyu had an idea. After kissing his daughter and son fiercely, he called the maidservants and handed the children to them. He returned to the study, found a pen and paper, and began to write and draw. The next day, before dawn, Aphrodite and Perrin, who had served their master in bed last night, carefully woke him up. After washing him up and changing him into his court robes, he got on the four-wheeled carriage under the protection of Niu Wu and the other officers of the mansion and sped towards Chang'an City. Li Wangyu had to attend the morning court today. After entering the imperial city, Li Wangyu smiled and greeted a group of familiar big shots. He still bowed and greeted them with the etiquette of a junior. When he saw Yu Shernan arrive, he hurriedly trotted forward and carefully supported the old man. Regardless of whether it was Yu Shernan or the other officials, they were all gratified that Li Wangyu, the Duke of Qin, was still as close to people as before despite his noble title. "Zio, I'm afraid there will be many waves in court today. You must remember to be careful," Yu Shernan kindly reminded. Li Wangyu smiled. "Rest assured, Duke Yu, I know what to do." "Oh? What do you plan to do? Do you have any use for old me?" "Buddha says, I can't say. Huh." Li Wangyu smiled and kept him in suspense. These were the same words he had said to Yu Shernan when he first met him. Yu Shernan examined Li Wangyu from head to toe with his slightly dim old eyes. Then, a grin appeared on his face. This young prince whom he had met at the crossroads of Hu County was indeed the same young man from back then. He hadn't changed at all. Li Wangyu supported Yu Shernan and walked towards the rows of officials. Ma Zhou, Yan Liben, Lu Rengui, Sheng Guanyi, and the others silently walked to Li Wangyu's side and bowed. "Teacher, I've caused trouble for you." Ma Zhou was ashamed. He also didn't expect that a memorial would cause such a stir in the capital. Pai Lupi had summoned Li Wangyu to court for this matter. In fact, Ma Zhou and the others had rushed to Dingzhou village yesterday to pay respects to their teacher, but they were refused entry. Li Wangyu had ordered people to chase them away. Li Wangyu was naturally angry. He felt that his disciple, no matter what, should have the country and the people in his heart. What was the point of meddling in the affairs of the imperial family? Moreover, Ma Zhou's memorial to build the Daming Palace was too much of a flattery to Pai Lupi. Therefore, how could Li Wangyu not be angry? After hearing Ma Zhou's words, Li Wangyu rolled his eyes to the sky. "Oh, isn't this Imperial Censor Ma? What are you saying? Imperial Censor Ma is wholeheartedly serving the public. How did you cause trouble for me?" His words scared Ma Zhou so much that his face turned white. His knees went soft and he directly knelt in front of Li Wangyu. Teacher, I was wrong, please forgive me. Please punish me." Ma Zhou was really scared at this time. Chapter 1058. In history, Ma Zhou had only become the head of the secretariat in the 18th year of Zhengguan's reign. In other words, he was one of the prime ministers of the Tang dynasty. The current Ma Zhou was merely an insignificant imperial censor. He did not have any authority to speak of. In fact, Yan Liben, Lu Rengui, Sheng Guanyi, and the other disciples were all like this. However, compared to the many officials of the capital in Chang'an, they were unremarkable. Even though Yan Liben's rank was relatively high, he was only an official of an unpopular yamen. He did not have any authority. However, Li Wangyou's disciples had a very special status within Chang'an. In particular, after Li Wangyou had been conferred the title of Prince of Qin and received news that he had not perished in the desert, Ma Zhou and the others were revered within Chang'an. Even those officials whose ranks were far higher than Ma Zhou, Lu Rengui, and Sheng Guanyi were courteous upon seeing them, not daring to offend them in the slightest. There was no need to explain the reason. It was because behind them was the great backing of Li Wangyou. Everyone knew how much Li Er valued and doted on his nephew, Li Wangyou. Not only had he bestowed his own title, the Prince of Qin, upon Li Wangyou's marriage, even Princess Chang'e had married into the Prince of Qin's household, becoming one of Li Wangyou's consorts. Even though Li Wangyou kept a low profile, he could not resist the reverence that the officials of the capital had for him. With Li Wangyou not appearing, Ma Zhou and the other disciples instead received all sorts of flattery. Even the officials from aristocratic families did not dare to lightly provoke them. After all, the aristocratic families, led by the 5 surnames and 7 nobles, had suffered too many losses at the hands of Li Wangyou. Even the clan heads of the aristocratic families did not want to lightly offend Li Wangyou. Naturally, these officials from aristocratic families had no choice but to retreat. After hearing too much flattery, it was inevitable that Ma Zhou and the others would become somewhat arrogant. They dared to argue with the aristocratic officials in Taiji Palace because they had the confidence to face off against their teacher, the Prince of Qin, Li Wangyou. Otherwise, how could they have the right to speak in such a large Taiji Palace? Yesterday, Ma Zhou and the others rushed to Dingzhou village and requested to see their teacher, but they were directly rejected. This was something that had never happened before, and they immediately felt that something was wrong. Recalling their actions during this period of time, everyone, including Ma Zhou, broke out in cold sweat. It seemed that they were a little too flamboyant. Therefore, when they wanted to apologize to Li Wangyou in the morning court assembly, they were frightened by Li Wangyou's words and knelt on the ground, not daring to say anything. If they really angered their master and were expelled from the sect, they would really be finished. The saliva of the people of the world could drown them. If they didn't have the protection of their teacher, Li Wangyou, those aristocratic family officials would probably immediately surround them and devour them until not even their bones were left. "Teacher, we were wrong, please punish us." Ma Zhou and the others didn't dare to argue and could only lower their heads and beg for mercy. Yu Shinan was actually dissatisfied with the actions of Ma Zhou and the others during this period of time, but because of Li Wangyou's face, he didn't say anything and didn't help either side in the court. At this moment, seeing Ma Zhou and the others in this state, the old man couldn't bear to see them like this. He advised, "Zio, it's better not to blame them anymore. Speaking of which, as a teacher, you also have a responsibility. Who told you to go to the Western Desert North for 2 years? It's normal for them to make some mistakes because of your lack of discipline. Young and frivolous, young and frivolous." Yu Shinan had forgotten that in terms of age, Li Wangyou was the youngest teacher. Among his disciples, even the youngest, Sheng Guanyi, was a few years older than Li Wangyou. It was just that Li Wangyou had always been a monster, so Yu Shinan had long forgotten that he had just reached the age of 20. Li Wangyou glared at Ma Zhou and the others. Since Master Yu has pleaded for you today, I will give you another chance. If there is a next time, don't blame me for expelling you from the sect. Yes. We dare not disobey. Ma Zhou and the others heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly thanked Li Wangyou and Yu Shinan. However, you can avoid the death penalty, but you can't escape punishment. You bastards, within 10 days, each of you will copy the Analects of Confucius 100 times. This will be your punishment. When Ma Zhou and the others heard this, their faces instantly darkened. The Analects of Confucius was about 10,000 words, so copying it 100 times would be more than 1,000,000 words. If they wanted to copy it in 10 days, their hands would be crippled. Ma Zhou, Yan Liben, Lu Rengui, Sheng Guanyi and the others looked at each other, but could only obediently nod and agree. Without a doubt, if they wanted to copy 1,000,000 words in 10 days, they would not need to think about sleeping during this period of time. After Li Wangyu had finished teaching his disciples a lesson, it was time to go to the imperial court. With his current status, going to the imperial court would definitely be his first priority. This was the etiquette of the imperial court, so Li Wangyu could not decline. He could only walk to the front of the hundreds of officials and lead the civil and military officials to the imperial court. After Li Wangyu appeared, the aristocratic officials also secretly shouted and made up their minds that no matter what, they would make the king of Qin suffer today. In short, they had the right to do so. These few days, through the mouths of the aristocratic families, intentionally or unintentionally adding fuel to the fire, had already caused an uproar in the city. Ma Zhou, the instigator, had attracted a lot of criticism in the streets. Even the citizens of Chang knew what it meant when the emperor wanted to build a new palace. The wool came from the sheep's back, so how could they not be afraid? Fortunately, the officials did not know that in the future, Wu Meinyang had even stopped paying the salaries of the officials in the capital in order to build the Ming Palace. Otherwise, these officials would probably want to strangle Ma Zhou to death. If not for Li Wangyu's high prestige in the streets, there would probably be people throwing rotten eggs and vegetables at Ma Zhou's residence. Actually, Ma Zhou now regretted it. He regretted that he had written a memorial to ask Pai Lupi to build a new palace. But he was also riding a tiger and could not back down. Now, he could only pray that his teacher, Li Wangyu, had the ability to help him resolve this matter. In Taiji Palace, Pai Lupi ascended the throne amidst the greetings of the officials. After the ceremony, the palace suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at Li Wangyu, who was in the front row of the hundreds of officials. Even Pai Lupi was the same. He looked at Li Wangyu with burning eyes. Li Wangyu felt a little uncomfortable being stared at by everyone. He could only rub his nose helplessly and cough lightly. He walked forward and said in a clear voice, "Reporting to your Majesty, I, Li Wangyu, have something to report." "Report it." "I heard that Censor Ma Zhou had once reported to your Majesty to build a new palace for the retired emperor. I think, this is inappropriate." After Li Wangyu said that it was inappropriate, the originally quiet palace immediately burst into a clamor. It was as lively as the busiest market in Chang'an. The faces of Ma Zhou and the others instantly turned pale, their faces drained of all color. The aristocratic officials, on the other hand, looked pleased. If Li Wangyu abandoned his disciples in order to protect himself, then Li Wangyu's reputation as the king of Qin would also be ruined. Who would dare to get close to such a person if he could abandon his own disciples at will? Even Fang Xianling and Gao Shilian frowned. They looked at Li Wangyu with puzzlement. Pai Lupi frowned even more. "Zio, what do you mean by this? I played for 2 days during National Day. Today I will make up for it." Chapter 1059. In everyone's opinion, even if Li Wangyu did not approve of his disciples' memorial, he should not have made such a statement in public. His words were equivalent to sentencing Ma Zhou and the others to death. Even he, the teacher, said that it was inappropriate. What else could Ma Zhou and the others argue? The crimes that the aristocratic families had previously accused Ma Zhou and the others would fall on them. Even if Pai Lupi wanted to protect Ma Zhou and the others, he had to consider the attitude of the civil and military officials in the court. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only shed tears and punish Ma Su and the others. When the noise in the main hall subsided, Li Wangyu smiled and said again, "Your Majesty, Censor Ma's memorial is indeed inappropriate. Although the Tang dynasty is growing stronger and stronger, and we have the kingdoms of the western region and the northern desert grassland under our rule, it would be difficult for us to take out a large amount of gold and copper coins to build a new palace for the retired emperor. Moreover, your majesty is a wise ruler. You are expanding the territory and serving the people. You should consider letting the Great China and all the kingdoms come to court. If your majesty were to build this new palace, no matter how magnificent it is, how would it compare to the Epang palace of the first emperor? Why should your majesty repeat the mistakes of the great Qin dynasty? Li Wangyou's words were not polite at all. Pai Lupi was so angry that his face darkened. In fact, although Ma Zhou was the one who submitted the memorial regarding the construction of the Daming Palace, Ma Zhou was also hinted by Pai Lupi to submit the memorial. Pai Lupi's purpose was very simple. He wanted to show his filial piety to Li Yuan in front of the world. To put it bluntly, it was just a political show. Therefore, when Li Yuan died, Pai Lupi immediately ordered to stop the construction of the Daming Palace. As for Li Ji, that brat, who later started to rebuild the Daming Palace, it was because he disliked the old Tai Chi Palace and wanted to enjoy himself. His purpose was completely different from Pai Lupi's. Pai Lupi actually did not care much about the luxuries of an emperor. Otherwise, he would not have stayed in the Taiji Palace all this time. This was Li Wangyu. He was actually in the main hall, in front of all the officials, criticizing him for forgetting the first emperor's Epang Palace. How could he not be angry? In the Epang Palace, Xiangyu had burned it down, and it was nowhere to be found. Li Wangyou's words were clearly saying that Pai Lupi couldn't love the people, couldn't seek long-term peace, ignored the lessons of history, and indulged in sensual pleasures. That was why he rose to power. This was simply pointing at a monk and scolding a bald donkey. No matter how much Pai Lupi thought highly of Li Wangyu, no matter how much he doted on him, he was so agitated that it was difficult for him to control himself. His anger was about to explode. Before he could say anything, Li Wangyu added fuel to the fire for Pai Lupi. Your Majesty, I have recently written a poem about the Epang Palace. I wonder if your Majesty is interested in hearing it? Pai Lupi's face turned even darker. He said coldly, everyone knows that King Qin's literary talent is the best in the world. Since King Qin has a new work, why don't you recite it so that I can appreciate it too? He did not even call Li Wangyu by his courtesy name. He directly called him King Qin. One could see how angry he was. Li Wangyu ignored him completely. He smiled and nodded at Pai Lupi. Then, he raised his voice and recited it loudly. The 6 kings are complete, the 4 seas are one, Mount Shu is born, Epang is born. It covers more than 300 miles, isolates the sun and the sky. Every 5 steps there is a building, every 10 steps there is a pavilion. Following Li Wangyou's recitation, the Taiji Palace became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone held their breath and listened attentively to Li Wangyu reciting this poem. Dumu's Epang Palace Ode had been passed down through the ages. There was no need to talk about its literary talent. Li Wangyu shamelessly plagiarized it again. This truly shocked all the civil and military officials of the court, as well as Pai Lupi in the hall. The magnificent description vividly portrayed the grandeur of Epang Palace, fully demonstrating the grandeur of the time. Everyone was fascinated by it. Even Pai Lupi's expression softened. He was almost about to clap his hands and cheer. But just as everyone was fascinated by it, Li Wangyu changed the topic. He began to recite the 3rd section of the Epang Palace Ode. Sigh. The heart of one person is the heart of 10,000 people. Qin loves extravagance, but people also miss their home. Alas! The one who destroyed the 6 countries was the 6 countries, not Qin. The people of Qin did not have time to mourn, but the later generations mourned. The later generations mourned but did not reflect, but also caused the later generations to mourn the later generations. This was a profound judgment. The historical lesson was described in detail and thought-provoking. It was a warning for the later generations, but also a feeling of concern for the country and its people. But these words, in Pai Lupi's ears, were extremely ironic. After Li Wangyu finished reciting the several hundred words of Ipang Palace Ode, the Taiji Palace Ode was so quiet that it was suffocating. Whether it was the officials of the aristocratic families, Fang Xianling, or Gao Shilian, none of them dared to make a sound. They were afraid of angering Pai Lupi on the throne and inviting trouble to themselves. But the eyes of the aristocratic family officials were filled with excitement. They felt that Li Wangyu was simply seeking his own death. To recite such a magnificent masterpiece in the air, it was completely rubbing Li Er's face on the ground, rubbing it against his face again and again. If Pai Lupi did not severely punish Li Wangyu today, where would his dignity as an emperor be? Ma Zhou and the others, at this moment, were ashen-faced. Their hands and feet could not help but tremble. Their division master was courting death. Ma Zhou wanted to slap himself. Why did he have to think about Pai Lupi's thoughts? Why did he have to follow Pai Lupi's hint and submit the memorial? If he could, he would rather see Li Wangyu be punished. Even if he was sent to the censorate's prison, he would not complain. Pai Lupi on the throne, at this moment, was on the verge of exploding. Even if he was an emperor, to be ridiculed by Li Wangyu with such a masterpiece, he could not tolerate it. Li Er could imagine that this Ipang ode to palace would definitely be passed down through the ages, and accompanying it would be his heroic reputation. He would also be labeled as someone who indulged in sensual pleasures, and it would be passed down through the ages. This was something that Pai Lupi, who had always prided himself as a wise emperor and wanted to leave his name in history, could not tolerate. But just as Pai Lupi's balloon was about to burst, Li Wangyu spoke again. Your Majesty, what do you think of this Ipang Palace Ode? Good. Very good. Very good. Pai Lupi's cold voice was squeezed out from between his teeth. His gaze towards Li Wangyu was even colder than before. If looks could kill, Li Wangyu's body would have been riddled with holes by now. Li Wangyu did not see Pai Lupi's extremely ugly expression at all. He continued, minding his own business. The lesson of the Qin people should be taken as a warning. Therefore, this new palace cannot be repaired by His Majesty, the court cannot be repaired, but... Just as Pai Lupi was about to explode, Li Wangyu changed the topic, but, I can repair it. Nanny? Li Wangyu's sudden change of topic almost broke the waists of Pai Lupi and the officials in Taiji Palace. What did this guy just say? The new palace cannot be repaired by His Majesty, but he can? What did this mean? Li Wangyu did not wait for the crowd to react and continued, Your Majesty, as a member of the imperial family, the retired emperor is also my elder. Being filial to the retired emperor is also my duty. Therefore, as the ruler of the Tang dynasty, Your Majesty should set an example and put the country first. But, I do not have such considerations. Furthermore, I am quite wealthy. Why don't I invest in the construction of the new palace? After Li Wangyu finished speaking, everyone, including Pai Lupi, almost forgot to breathe. Chapter 1060. Pai Lupi felt that his brain was not enough today. He even suspected that there was something wrong with his ears and that he was having auditory hallucinations. In the Taiji Palace, in front of the officials, Li Wangyu, this bastard, first threw out the famous poem, Ipang Ode to the Palace, which made him spit on his face. Then, without waiting for him to explode in anger, this guy took a turn and shamelessly said that he would be responsible for all the costs of building the new palace. Pai Lupi took a deep breath, stabilized his mind that was about to explode, and asked, Ziyu, what nonsense are you talking about? Do you know how much the new palace covers? How much do you need to spend? How much property do you have? Can you build a new palace for the retired emperor? The Daming Palace was the political center of the Tang dynasty. In the 200 years after its construction, there were 17 Tang emperors who handled the court affairs here. The Daming Palace, after being completed, covered an area of 3,2 2 million square meters. In contrast, the Forbidden City of the later generations only covered an area of 720,000 square meters. In other words, the Daming Palace was equivalent to 4 Forbidden City. Of course, the Daming Palace was not so huge from the beginning. Even if Pai Lupi wanted to show filial piety to his father, he was not crazy enough to do so. The scale of the Daming Palace was obtained through the continuous reconstruction, expansion and renovation of the Tang emperors. Of course, the construction of the new palace was not started by Ma Zhou and Pai Lupi. Because the Taiji Palace had been in disrepair for a long time, in fact, including Pai Lupi, the imperial court also had plans to build a new palace. The Ministry of Works also had plans for this, including where the new palace would be built and how large it would be. It was just that the construction of the new palace would cost a lot of money, so the plan was just a plan and there was no official plan to start construction. It could be said that if the construction of the new palace was started, the entire Tang dynasty would have to tighten their belt. The huge financial pressure was also the reason why Pai Lupi immediately stopped the construction of the Daming Palace when Li Yuan died. Under such circumstances, Li Wangyu actually dared to boast shamelessly that he would fund the construction of a new palace for Li Yuan. If this wasn't crazy, then what was? Pai Lupi knew that Li Wangyu's net worth was not small. He might even be richer than the royal treasury. But even so, to support the construction of such a huge new palace was like throwing a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Li Wangyu was indifferent to Pai Lupi's question. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he bowed to Pai Lupi and said, "Your Majesty, I have a gift for Your Majesty. I hope that Your Majesty will accept it." Pai Lupi was getting more and more confused about what he was trying to do. He could only nod his head in agreement. Li Wangyu gestured to me Tuo. Soon, 2 servants walked into the hall with a scroll in their hands. Everyone in the hall was getting more and more curious. They didn't understand what Li Wangyu was trying to do. With Pai Lupi's permission, the 2 servants slowly unrolled the scroll and presented it to Pai Lupi and the officials. On the scroll, palaces and pavilions appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The hall was quiet for a few breaths of time. Then, it became noisy again. Which palace is depicted in this painting? It's so grand and magnificent. A pavilion every 5 steps, a pavilion every 10 steps. Could this be the Apang Palace? The 2 rivers melt and flow into the palace walls. Long bridges lie on the waves, not clouds and dragons. This really is the Apang Palace in the Apang Palace Ode written by the King of Qin. Wait, that's not right. The architectural style in this painting is not the Qin style. It is the architectural style of our Tang dynasty. Yan Liben and his elder brother, Yan Lide, were the great general and junior supervisor respectively. After seeing this scroll, they didn't even care about the etiquette of the imperial court. Without Li Er's permission, they stumbled over to the scroll and began to carefully examine it. Pai Lupi also couldn't help but stand up from his throne. He walked down the royal steps and carefully examined the scroll. "Zio, could this be the blueprint of the new palace that you drew?" Combined with what Li Wangyu had said before, Pai Lupi already had some guesses. However, he couldn't help but ask in a trembling voice. It was no wonder that Pai Lupi couldn't stay calm. The scroll that Li Wangyu had drawn showed the palaces, pavilions, and waterside pavilions. It was too exquisite. A paradise on earth, a jade palace. This was Pai Lupi's admiration for the palaces in the painting. Without waiting for Li Wangyu to answer, Yan Liben immediately answered, "Your Majesty, it can't be wrong. This must be the new palace drawn by the teachers. This should be the front court, and this should be the inner court. Inside and outside, platforms, halls, pavilions, everything is there." Yan Liben was indeed the designer of the Daming Palace in history. Although Li Wangyu had drawn the scroll, he only looked at it for a moment and accurately identified the key points. Li Wangyu smiled pretentiously and nodded. He pointed at the scroll and said, "Your Majesty, I heard that the new palace is called Yangon Palace. I don't think it's very appropriate." The Book of Songs, Daya said, "King Wen had great virtue, so he was King Wu who answered the heavens. King Wen and King Wu inherited each other. Their virtue grew, so they were called Daming. I think that the new palace should be called Daming Palace. What do you think, Your Majesty?" What he said was actually the origin of the name of the Daming Palace in history. It meant that he used King Zhou's diligence and wisdom as an example to encourage himself. Of course, Pai Lupi didn't know the origin of the Daming Palace that Li Wangyu mentioned. After thinking for a while, he felt that it was very reasonable and couldn't help but applaud. "Good. Ziyu's words are exactly what I want. Daming Palace. Good. If the new palace is built, it will be called Daming Palace. Your Majesty is wise." The pretentious plagiarist didn't have any psychological burden. He bowed and flattered Pai Lupi. After flattering Pai Lupi a little, Li Wangyu pointed at the painting and said, "Your Majesty, please look. This is the painting of the Daming Palace that I drew. This is the front court. Your Majesty can hold court meetings here in the future to deal with court affairs. I took the initiative to name the palaces of the front court as Hanyuan Palace, Political Announcing Palace, and Zichen Palace. This is the inner court's supreme liquid pool." In fact, Li Wangyu didn't know what the real Daming Palace looked like. After all, the Daming Palace had been destroyed in the long river of history. Even in the future, the Daming Palace National Ruins Park was built in Xi'an. He had even seen the virtual reconstruction of the Daming Palace when he was traveling. However, that was only the argument and speculation made by the historians of the future based on the ruins of the Daming Palace. Therefore, the painting of the Daming Palace that he drew was completely based on his imagination. There was no actual basis. However, even if it was based on Li Wangyu's imagination, the painting was enough to make everyone gasp in amazement. There was only one reason: it was big enough and grand enough. For example, the Taiji Palace's Taiji Palace was 3 meters tall. Then, Li Wangyu set the Hanyuan Palace of the Daming Palace to be 6 meters tall. The entire palace was leaning against the blue sky. It was tall and majestic, and it was breathtaking. That was not all. In the painting that Li Wangyu drew, there was a palace that was 7 to 8 floors high. He even pointed out to Pai Lupi that it was the Yin and Yang Palace that was specially designed for Pai Lupi. In the beginning, Pai Lupi was very excited. However, the more he looked at the painting, the worse his expression became. In the end, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh, "Zio, you are so thoughtful. However, I think that the Daming Palace in your painting can only be built by an immortal." The two brothers, Yen Liben and Yen Lide, nodded silently at the side. They agreed with Pai Lupi's words. Many officials in the Taiji Palace who knew about architecture also shook their heads. Obviously, no one thought that the Daming Palace that Li Wangyu drew could be built by human hands. Other things aside, how could the Yin and Yang Palace, which was dozens of meters tall, be built? One must know that since ancient times in China, other than the Buddhist pagodas, there had never been such a tall building. Chapter 1061. According to the records of Luoyang Temple, the pagoda of Yongning Temple in the Northern Wei dynasty was 9 stories high, 1,000 feet high, and made of wood. It was the tallest building in ancient Wuxia. Regardless of the authenticity of the records, whether a wooden pagoda could be built to 100 meters high or not, the technical difficulty of building a pagoda was completely different from building a palace. In addition, Wuxia's tradition of using wood as a building material limited the appearance of tall buildings. In response to Pai Lupi's question, Li Wangyu's smile became even brighter. "Your Majesty, I can definitely build this Daming Palace. There is no problem." "Your Majesty, did you forget that I am the direct disciple of the ancestor?" His words made Pai Lupi's eyes brighten. Pai Lupi and the other officials believed that Li Wangyu was the direct disciple of the ancestor. If that was the case, it was not impossible for Li Wangyu to build this new palace. Only Yan Liben, a technical geek, continued to ask after hearing his teacher's words. Teacher, forgive me for being stupid, but how can a wooden building be built so high? I really don't understand. Li Wangyu smiled. Liben, why must it be built with wood? Why can't it be built with bricks? This, teacher, I'm afraid it's not appropriate. How can bricks be used to build a palace? Yan Liben was still thinking about it. Pai Lupi also looked at Li Wangyu with a questioning gaze. Although he did not understand architecture, he also felt that it was not appropriate to build a new palace with bricks. After all, Wuxia had been accustomed to using wood as a building material since ancient times, and bricks were rarely used. In fact, Wuxia had been accustomed to using wood since ancient times, mainly because there were enough wood resources. Plus, wood was easy to process, convenient to transport, and had a good insulation effect. Wuxia also had the tradition of building a house with stone. Your Majesty, there is a saying in the book, Zhao Wang was a pioneer of wisdom, and asked his disciples to take up his teaching. He built a stone palace and went to his teacher. It can be seen that stone palaces have existed since ancient times, and it is not only made of wood that can make a palace. After all, wood is easy to be damaged. However, if it is built with bricks, I believe that the Ming Palace can last for hundreds or thousands of years. Li Wangyu's words made Pai Lupi very tempted. Looking at the painting in front of him, he was even more tempted. If the palace in the painting could really be built, it must be very magnificent, right? And what moved Pai Lupi the most was that Li Wangyu actually said that he would pay for the construction of Noda's palace. It would be strange if the stingy Pai Lupi didn't feel anything. Pai Lupi had already forgotten that Li Wangyu had used Ipang Ode to Palace to scold him. The more he looked at the painting of the Daming Palace, the more he liked it. Zio, can you really build such an extravagant new palace? You really don't need me or the imperial court to pay for it? Pai Lupi still didn't believe Li Wangyu's words. Actually, it wasn't just him who didn't believe it. None of the civil and military officials in Taiji Palace believed it. Ma Zhou and the others' eyes were red. They lowered their heads and didn't say anything. They clenched their fists so tightly that their nails dug into their flesh. In their minds, their teacher must have been prepared to spend all of his family's wealth to build a new palace for His Majesty and the retired emperor in order to clean up their mess. Thinking of this, Ma Zhou wished that he could just let Pai Lupi give the order to beat him to death. He regretted even more that he had been so muddle-headed and impulsive to the imperial court to build a stupid new palace. If he wasn't in the palace, Ma Zhou would have knelt in front of Li Wangyu and cried loudly, begging for his teacher's forgiveness. Yan Li was the junior supervisor of the Directorate of Generals. He knew very well that building a new palace like the one in Li Wangyu's painting wasn't something that a single family's wealth could afford. Even the current imperial court of the Tang dynasty couldn't afford it, let alone his teacher. In his opinion, such a huge project couldn't be completed without at least a few decades. How could Li Wangyu afford it? Li Wangyu was very calm in the face of everyone's doubts. Your Majesty, I am confident that I can build the Daming Palace. It won't take too long, just 1 year. Hiss. Li Wangyu's words caused everyone in Taiji Palace to gasp. Those who were close to Li Wangyu all had worried expressions, while the aristocratic family officials all had joyous expressions after recovering from their shock. Your Highness Duke of Qin, you can't speak carelessly. There are no joking words in the palace. Your Majesty, since the Duke of Qin is so certain, why don't Your Majesty fulfill his filial piety? After the Daming Palace is built, the retired emperor will be able to move in and enjoy his remaining years. Your Majesty, I think His Highness Duke of Qin's words are reasonable. Your Majesty, please grant His Highness Duke of Qin's request. Since His Highness Duke of Qin can build the Daming Palace in 1 year without spending a single coin of the imperial court, why don't Your Majesty fulfill His Highness' filial piety? I second that. Nearly half of the officials in Taiji Palace stood up. How could these aristocratic officials let go of such an opportunity? They didn't wait for Pai Lupi to speak before they all stepped forward to request that Pai Lupi agree to Li Wangyu's request. Their plan was simple. They wanted to put Li Wangyu and Pai Lupi on the fire so that they couldn't go back on their words. No one would believe Li Wangyu's words just now. They all treated it as a stalling tactic, a trick used to divert attention. As long as they could force Pai Lupi to agree to this request, if the Daming Palace wasn't built in 1 year, Duke of Qin Li Wangyu would be guilty of deceiving the emperor. In any case, Li Wangyu had said it himself, so he couldn't blame them for making an issue out of it. Li Wangyu didn't pay attention to the clamor of these aristocratic officials. He only treated them as a swarm of buzzing flies. Everyone knew that Duke of Qin Li Wangyu didn't get along with the aristocratic families. Even if Fang Xianling, Gao Shilian, and the other bigwigs wanted to speak up for Li Wangyu, they didn't know what to say. The bigwigs looked at each other and silently shook their heads. They felt that Li Wangyu had been too rash in today's matter. Pai Lupi was naturally unhappy with the aristocratic officials, forcing to abdicate, but he couldn't do anything about it. He simply ignored the officials and turned to look at Li Wangyu. Zio, have you really thought it through? Building a new palace isn't something that can be done with a few 100,000 taels of gold. Your Majesty, what I said before, was it a lie? I can really build the Daming Palace. He dared to say that he could build the Daming Palace in 1 year because he was confident. In history, the construction of the large-scale Daming Palace started in June of the 2nd year of Longxua. When it was completed, it took Li Ji only 4 months of the 3rd year of Longxua. Moreover, he didn't plan to use too much wood. He planned to use bricks and cement to build the new palace. In this way, as long as the cement and bricks were in place and there were enough craftsmen, the construction speed could only be faster. 1 year's time was more than enough. The construction cost wasn't as high as Pai Lupi and the others thought. Of course, Li Wangyu didn't propose to Pai Lupi that he would fund the construction of the Daming Palace just to clean up after Ma Zhou and the others' mess. Li Wangyu didn't have so much money that he didn't know where to spend it. He didn't want to use his own money to build a palace for Li Yuan. Sometimes, spending money wasn't necessarily an opportunity to make money. Chapter 1062. In the face of Li Wangyu's insistence, Pai Lupi could not say anything more. Zio, since you insist, I will agree to your request. The Ministry of Works and the Supervisor of Works will cooperate with you. If you need anything, just tell me. After all, you are building a new palace for the retired emperor. I can't do nothing. After Pai Lupi said this, the aristocratic officials in the hall quieted down. They looked at each other with excitement in their eyes. Obviously, they had achieved their goal. However, Li Wangyu was also waiting for Pai Lupi to say this. Your Majesty, I do have one more thing. Oh? Then bring it to me. Li Wangyu gestured to Tuo again. Then, 2 palace eunuchs walked to the center of the hall with a scroll. The curiosity of Li Er and the officials was once again piqued. Li Wangyu had personally drawn the majestic and magnificent Daming Palace in the painting just now. Then, what did he draw in this painting? Pai Lupi immediately gestured to the 2 eunuchs to unroll the scroll quickly. After the scroll was unrolled slowly, Pai Lupi could not help but be stunned. On the scroll, it was clearly Chang'an City. However, it was different from the ordinary maps of the Tang dynasty. This scroll of Chang'an City was drawn with a 3-dimensional overlooking method, making people feel as if they were looking down at the earth from the 9th heaven. Pai Lupi had seen this method of drawing before. The map that Li Wangyu presented to Pai Lupi was also drawn with this method. However, it was the first time for Pai Lupi, the emperor of the Tang dynasty, to observe the majestic city in such a direct way. Fang Xianling, Zhang Sun Wuji, and Gao Shilian, the big shots in the imperial court, were also interested at this moment. They walked to the front of the hall and carefully admired the overlooking map of Chang and city with Pai Lupi. Actually, because Li Wangyu was in a hurry, his drawing was not very detailed and was very sloppy. However, the unique perspective made Pai Lupi and the other big shots look at it with great interest. From time to time, they would point at a certain part of the picture and chat happily. The scroll overlooking Chang and city in the hands of the two eunuchs was not fully unfolded. After receiving Li Wangyu's signal, they slowly unrolled the second half of the scroll. When Pai Lupi and the others saw it, they couldn't help but be stunned. Zio, your map of Chang'an is not right. To the north of Taiji Palace, why is there an extra wall and inner square? Before the Daming Palace was built, Chang'an city of the Tang dynasty was basically a square city. The Taiji Palace was located in the northernmost part of Chang'an city. It was backed by the Xuanwu Gate and Xuanda Gate of Weigua City. However, in the bird's-eye view of Chang'an city drawn by Li Wangyu, a large area of Chang'an city extended to the north. Including the unbuilt Daming Palace, the Chang'an city he drew turned from a square to a rectangle. The location of Taiji Palace was instead the center of Chang'an city. Zio, explain to me, what do you mean by this? Pai Lupi couldn't understand Li Wangyu's thoughts. Your Majesty, now that the Tang dynasty has been peaceful for a long time, and the people have been recuperating and multiplying, this is all thanks to your Majesty. Li Wangyu flattered Pai Lupi a little, which made Pai Lupi very happy. However, there are already nearly 1 million people in Chang'an city, and the number is increasing day by day. It's not easy to live in Chang'an University. Therefore, I would like to ask your Majesty to expand Chang'an city while the new Daming Palace is being built. Of course, all the expenses will be borne by me. Your Majesty, please allow me to expand Chang'an city and let me handle the sales of those houses. Even though Li Wangyu's voice wasn't loud, it was like a thunderclap that exploded within the hall, and it shook everyone to the point they felt dizzy and flabbergasted, causing them to be at a loss for words. Expand Chang'an city? Should this be done? Of course it should. Moreover, such voices had already been heard in the imperial court. Although Chang'an city was the largest, most magnificent, and most standardized capital city in the world at that time, it had been 50 to 60 years since the construction began in the 2nd year of the Sui dynasty and the 8th year of Zhenguan era. As Li Wangyu said, Chang'an city had begun to become crowded. As the Silk Road's trade between the East and West continued to deepen, the East and West cities had long been operating at full capacity. Chang'an and Wanyan counties both wanted to expand the East and West cities, but the people living in the surrounding houses were either rich or noble. It was impossible to demolish them. Therefore, this idea was just an idea. In addition to the terrain of Chang'an city, the northern part of the city was relatively low. Every summer, it would be unusually hot. This was also the reason why Pai Lupi wanted to build the new palace on higher ground in the northern part of the city. Even those officials and nobles mostly lived near the Taiji Palace. The terrain was also relatively low, and they also had a headache about the hot summer and the humid environment. This was also one of the reasons why Li Wangyu lived in Dingzhou village for a long time and didn't want to return to his mansion in Kaihua Square. However, the cost of expanding Chang'an city was an unimaginable astronomical figure in everyone's eyes. It was several times larger than the construction of the Daming Palace. Pai Lupi was stunned for a long time before he said, Zio, did you really think about what you said just now? Do you know how much it will cost to expand Chang'an city? Your Majesty, of course I know. Li Wangyu answered with certainty. However, everyone in the hall thought that Li Wangyu had gone crazy. Of course, he wasn't crazy. Instead, he was secretly delighted. The so-called construction of the Daming Palace was just a guise to attract Pai Lupi. The real purpose was to expand Chang'an city. To be more precise, it was to develop real estate. As he said before, real estate in the Tang dynasty was not worth much, but it was divided by location. Lai Hot's Noda house in Hu County was only 30 to 50,000 yuan. However, after Ma Zhou became an official, he wanted to buy a much smaller house in Chang'an City, but he needed more than 100,000 yuan. Location. Location. And location. This was the only way to develop real estate at any time. If he only went to the northern part of Chang'an City to expand the new city, no one would be interested. However, if he built the Daming Palace first, then the value of the new city around the Daming Palace would be debatable. Even if the aristocratic families were always intentionally or unintentionally against the imperial power and Pai Lupi, they still needed to have enough social status. Just like how they could live near the Taiji Palace in the northern part of Chang'an City now, living near the Taiji Palace in the future would also reflect the status of these nobles and aristocratic families. How much do you think such a location should be sold for? After being reminded by Su Chongqing, Li Wangyu continued to think a lot. To attract the richest people in the Tang dynasty, the location alone was not enough to make him a lot of money. More importantly, he had to provide enough attractive products. Li Wangyu was not worried about this at all. With knowledge more than 2,000 years ahead, it was easy for him to come up with something novel to attract the bumpkins of the Tang dynasty, since the Daming Palace could be built in 10 months in history. Even if it was not the whole thing, it was enough to show that Li Wangyu could do it with bricks. Although this was a bit exaggerated, it was not outrageous. After all, the more people there were, the more power there was. With tens of thousands of craftsmen, whether it was efficiency or speed, it would not be too slow. Chapter 1063. Li Wangyu's words silenced Pai Lupi once again. He was speechless for a long time, but his gaze continued to wander between the two paintings that the chamberlain had unfolded. Obviously, the two paintings that Li Wangyu had drawn were very tempting to Pai Lupi, but he instinctively refused to believe his nephew's words. Building a huge new palace with the power of one person and expanding it to the size of half of Chang'an City sounded like a fantasy story. It was hard to accept. Pai Lupi knew that Li Wangyu was rich, but no matter how rich he was, Pai Lupi did not think that it was enough to complete these two huge projects. Ziyu, let me think about this carefully. Pai Lupi shook his head and did not immediately agree. But even if Pai Lupi did not agree, how could the officials from the aristocratic families let go of such a good opportunity? In their eyes, since the Duke of Qin, Li Wangyu, was walking further and further down the path of seeking death, they naturally had to give him a push. Wang Ying immediately stood up and bowed to Pai Lupi. Your Majesty, I think that the Duke of Qin's words are very reasonable. Now that the number of citizens in Chang'an City is increasing day by day, it is imperative that we expand Chang'an City. Since the Duke of Qin has the courage and does not need to waste money in the imperial court, why not? Your Majesty should agree to the Duke of Qin's memorial. Minister Wang is right, I second that. Your Majesty, please reconsider. This is beneficial to the citizens and the imperial court. Your Majesty, please agree to the Duke of Qin's memorial. A group of aristocratic family officials chimed in one after another, causing Li Er to hesitate for a moment. He was unhappy, but he could not refute the words of Wang Ying and the others. Pai Lupi once again looked at Li Wangyu. Li Wangyu smiled and nodded slightly, indicating that this was exactly what he was thinking. Seeing that Li Wangyu was so confident, Pai Lupi had no choice but to follow the will of the people and agree to Li Wangyu. Good. In that case, I will agree to the Duke of Qin's memorial. The construction of the Daming Palace and the expansion of Chang'an City will be handed over to the Duke of Qin. This matter is of great importance, and the Duke of Qin has the right to act at his discretion. Except for money and silk, the imperial court will cooperate with the Duke in everything else. In addition, the construction of the Daming Palace and the expansion of Chang'an City will be handed over to the Duke of Qin. The Ministry of Works, the craftsmen, laborers, and this year's Guangzhou road workers. Does anyone have any objections? The Pai was to help Li Wangyu. The Duke of the King of Qin City was the Emperor of the Emperor. Lupi, the Pai Lupi could help Li in terms of manpower. In Guangzhong Road, all the civilian laborers who needed to serve the corvée this year, as well as the craftsmen from the Ministry of Works and the General Supervisor, were all the help that Li Er could give Li Wangyu. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Li Wangyu accepted it with a smile. With enough free craftsmen and laborers, his money-making plan seemed to be able to save a lot of expenses. "Your Majesty, I will bear all the expenses for the construction of the Daming Palace and the expansion of Chang'an City. However, if there are any profits, I wonder." Li Wangyu immediately asked. Once the expansion of half of Chang'an City was completed, the profits would be unimaginable. Li Wangyu had to confirm this first. Otherwise, if someone took the peach in the future, wouldn't his efforts be in vain? However, whether it was Pai Lupi or Fang Xianling, they didn't think that the expansion of Chang'an City would be profitable. Therefore, after hearing his words, they couldn't help but shake their heads and smile bitterly. Pai Lupi was also helpless. He shook his head and sighed. If Zio is capable and can make profits from it, it will all belong to the mansion of the King of Qin. I and the imperial court won't take a single cent. Wang Ying and other aristocratic officials also looked at him as if he were a fool. They smiled but didn't say anything. In their opinion, not to mention how much money it would cost to build the Daming Palace, the cost of the expansion of half of Chang'an City and the construction of the outer city walls would be enough to empty the mansion of the King of Qin. It would be a fool's dream to think that he could make profits from it. In fact, their calculation was not wrong. In history, it took the Northern Song dynasty 3 years to build the new capital, Bianliang, which was Kaifeng. The city walls were more than 50 miles long and more than 300,000 laborers were recruited. Then, how many laborers would it take to expand half of Chang'an City? Even if the laborers were recruited by the imperial court and didn't need to be paid, there were so many laborers that they had to be fed, right? With so many people, the daily cost of food and drink alone would be a huge figure. Naturally, they were happy to see that Li Wangyu was willing to spend all his money on such a thankless task. Moreover, they didn't believe that Li Wangyu had enough money to build the Daming Palace in Noda within a year. Both sides had their own ideas, but they tacitly agreed on such a big matter at the imperial court meeting. Pai Lupi issued an imperial edict that the construction of the new palace and the expansion of Chang'an City would be handed over to Li Wangyu. Li Wangyu was very satisfied with the result. After the imperial court meeting, he declined the invitation of Fang Xianling, Gao Shilian, and other big shots to stay. He directly led his several disciples back to Dingzhou village. Along the way, Ma Zhou and the others kept silent, but they looked miserable. Ma Zhou, especially, was full of regret. In their opinion, Li Wangyu did this to clean up the mess for them. But how could the disciples not be worried when they had to pay such a big price? Li Wangyu ignored Ma Zhou and the others. After returning to Dingzhou village, he immediately found Su Chongqing to report the good news. "Chongqing, it's done. His Majesty has handed over the construction of the Daming Palace and the expansion of Chang'an City to our family." Li Wangyu laughed and picked up his son and daughter. He spun a few rounds excitedly. "Ah Ji, Badger, your father is going to make money for you again. You two little fellows are really too lucky. You're born as the second generation of a rich family. Are you happy?" Li Wangyu's behavior made Ma Zhou and the others look at each other. They didn't understand what was wrong with their teacher. Although they didn't understand the term rich second generation, they roughly understood the meaning of Li Wangyu's words. What did he mean by making money again? Could it be that there were profits to be made? Ma Zhou hesitated for a while. In the end, he plucked up his courage and asked, "Teacher, what did you mean by what you said earlier?" Li Wangyu ignored him, minding his own business as he played with his son and daughter. It was Su Chongqing who saw the ashamed looks on Ma Zhou and the others' faces and couldn't bear it, so he spoke up and revealed her and Li Wangyou's plan. After understanding Su Chongqing's words, Ma Zhou, Yan Liben, and the others looked as if they had seen a ghost. They looked at Li Wangyu, who was playing with his son and daughter, in disbelief. They would never have thought that their teacher would make use of this to make profits. While Ma Zhou and the others were dumbfounded, the old butler, Li Heng, hurried over. Lang Jun, His Majesty, and the other officials are here. All right, this chapter is definitely lousy to the extreme. Allow me to adjust my state of mind. Chapter 1064. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, the end of the 7th year of Zhengguan had arrived. On the 26th day of the 12th lunar month, the imperial court had already begun the New Year's Eve holiday. All the officials of the government offices stopped their work and prepared to go home for the new year. However, the citizens of Chang, and who had always loved to gossip, keenly noticed that something big was about to happen in Chang, and after the morning drum sounded and the gates opened. The citizens who lived in the squares near the eastern and western markets found that the wealthy merchants and barbarian merchants had all put on new clothes and were heading for the gates in the northern part of the city. The nobles and officials who lived in the northern part of the city did the same. They were escorted by their guards and headed for the 9 gates in the northern part of the city. The 9 gates in the northern part of Chang had been closed for half a year. Everyone knew that Prince Qin was building the Daiming Palace and expanding the city outside the 9 gates in the northern part of Chang. Therefore, the citizens of Chang were gossiping again when these rich and powerful people swarmed to the northern part of the city. Unlike the officials in the imperial court, the citizens did not worry about whether Li Wangyu had enough money to complete these 2 projects. They were more interested in discussing how much money the Prince of Qin's mansion had, whether it was as rich as a country, and whether the imperial court's treasury or the Prince of Qin's mansion's treasury had more gold. The northern part of Chang had become a huge construction site. Hundreds of thousands of workers and craftsmen from Guanzhong Road were busy there every day. 4-wheeled carriages were like ants, transporting all kinds of wood, stone, bricks, and other building materials from all over the Tang dynasty to the northern part of Chang. After half a year of construction, the Daiming Palace had begun to take shape. At this moment, the nobles and officials of Chang, as well as the wealthy merchants and Persian barbarian merchants, had gathered outside the thick vermilion walls of the Daiming Palace. The officials in the imperial court had different statuses, so they naturally crowded together with the merchants and barbarian merchants and whispered to each other. "Everyone, why did His Majesty summon us here today? Yes, it would be fine if it was just the officials in the imperial court. But why are these merchants and barbarian merchants here? His Majesty is too lenient towards these merchants." At this moment, the merchants were also gathered together and whispering to each other. "Duke Chou, I wonder why the Duke of Qin has summoned us here today? Please enlighten us, Master Chou." The one who was clustered in the middle of the merchants was Chou Yuanliang, the head of the Chou family in Chang'an. Everyone knew that the Chiu clan had a close relationship with the Duke of Qin's manor. Moreover, with the help of the King of Qin, the Chiu family's business grew bigger and bigger. Now, the Chiu family was in the limelight in the east and west of Chang'an city. Chou Yuanliang was even more respected by the merchants. Because of his relationship with Li Wangyu, even the court officials had to politely address him as Duke Chou when they saw him. He stroked his beard and smiled, but he didn't answer. Instead, he kept them in suspense. "Everyone, it's not a bad thing that the Duke of Qin invited us here. As for the specifics, please don't be impatient. You will know in a while." Seeing that Chou Yuanliang refused to say, the merchants were even more curious. But judging from his attitude, it shouldn't be a bad thing. Therefore, even if they were suspicious, these merchants didn't dwell on it. Instead, they began to admire the brand new Daiming Palace in front of them. Although the construction of the Daiming Palace had yet to be completed, just the towering and thick vermilion palace walls and palace gates in front of everyone was already enough to show the imperial bearing of the great Tang. Everyone could not help but yearn for the magnificent sight behind the palace gates. Now that half a year had passed, even the ordinary people in Chang could already see the new palace named Daming Palace in the north of the city when they looked up. A towering and huge building was constantly growing taller and taller every day. Naturally, they didn't know that the majestic building was the core of the Daming Palace. It was the Yin and Yang Hall designed by Li Wangyu, Pai Lupi's bedroom. The 8-story Yin and Yang Hall had now been completed and topped off. The glittering top of the hall shone brightly under the sunlight every day, showing the noble and inviolable majesty of the imperial power to the world. At this time, Pai Lupi and Li Wangyu were standing on the gate of the Daming Palace, looking down at the crowd below. "Zio, is your plan really okay? In order to support you, I have emptied the palace treasury. If those shops cannot be sold, then my palace treasury will be so empty that rats can run away." Li Wangyu silently rolled his eyes and complained in his heart. He really wanted to say to Pai Lupi, "If His Majesty didn't believe me, why did he force me to have a share in the first place? Can I refund you the money now? Damn it, what do you mean by supporting me?" Back then, it was this bastard who led a group of dukes to his residence and insisted on investing in his company, alright? Thinking of this, Li Wangyu couldn't help but feel heartache. The shares that were given out were all money. That day, when Li Wangyu had just returned to his mansion, the old housekeeper Li Heng came to inform him that Pai Lupi had led a group of officials to visit. Although Pai Lupi couldn't figure out what Li Wangyu wanted to do, combined with the many things that Li Wangyu had done in the past, his intuition told him that this matter was definitely not that simple. Therefore, after the court, Pai Lupi found Fang Xianling, Zhangsun Wuji, and the others for a discussion. After a fruitless discussion, they directly went to Dingzhou village, ready to clarify things in person. Of course, Li Wangyu was unwilling to explain his little abacus, but he couldn't resist the threats and promises of Pai Lupi and the other officials. In the end, he had no choice but to reveal his and Su Changqing's real estate development plan. In fact, the plan was very simple. It was to build the Daming Palace in the north of the city. After Pai Lupi and Li Yuan moved into the new palace, the center of Chang and city would naturally shift to the north. In this way, the value of the land in the north of the city, which was originally a wasteland, would rise. This method of speculating on land was not uncommon in the future. In order to develop new areas, there were similar cases of municipal offices being moved to new areas in many cities. After the municipal offices were moved, the originally desolate new areas would naturally be driven up, and the property prices would rise accordingly. In the future, in many cities, the property prices in new areas were much higher than in the old areas. In the history of Chang and city, although the Daming Palace was built in the north of the city, the area of Chang and city did not expand. Therefore, the construction of the Daming Palace did not bring any changes to Chang and city. However, Li Wangyu discovered the secret under Su Changqing's reminder. Therefore, after some planning, he proposed that he would invest in the construction of the Daming Palace and the expansion of Chang and city in the imperial court. After figuring out Li Wangyu's purpose, Pai Lupi and the other high dukes actually asked to invest in the project, which made Li Wangyu angry and amused at the same time. Although Pai Lupi and the other high dukes invested in the project, which would reduce his financial pressure, wouldn't it also reduce his profits? In the end, Li Wangyu couldn't outdo the other high dukes. Under Li Wangyu's strong persuasion, the mansion of King Qin took 30% of the shares, the royal family took 30%, and the remaining 40% was divided equally among the high dukes' mansions. After half a year, the gold, copper, and silk of the high dukes' mansions, including Pai Lupi's, were poured into the two bottomless pits of the north of the city and the Daming Palace. Whether they could recover their investment or even make a fortune depended on today. No wonder Pai Lupi, the emperor of the Tang dynasty, was a little nervous. Chapter 1065. While the officials in the imperial court and the merchants were waiting in confusion, the new and heavy gate of the Daming Palace slowly opened. Pai Lupi and Li Wangyu walked out, surrounded by a group of eunuchs and palace guards. The crowd was in an uproar. Today, whether it was the officials in the imperial court or the merchants, they had all received an invitation from Li Wangyu, the king of Qin, to visit the new city in the north of Chang'an. They did not expect that Pai Lupi would show up. "Greetings, your majesty." The officials hurriedly bowed. As for the merchants and barbarians, although most of them had never seen the emperor with their own eyes, they immediately realized who the bearded man standing next to Li Wangyu was. He was dressed in a bright yellow robe embroidered with dragon patterns. Therefore, a group of merchants in luxurious robes bowed to Pai Lupi in confusion. Some bowed with their hands on their chests, some bowed, and some directly knelt down and kowtowed. In short, it was a mess. The officials in the imperial court could not help but twitch their lips and complain in their hearts. Pai Lupi did not feel offended at all. He waved his hand happily, indicating that the crowd could rise. "Everyone, rise. I heard that the king of Qin invited all of you to visit the Daming Palace today. I was very curious, so I came uninvited." Even I don't know what the Daming Palace looks like. How about all of you come with me today?" Li Wangyu laughed in his heart. Pai Lupi was simply lying through his teeth. Since the Daming Palace was opened, Pai Lupi wished that he could go 8 times a day. How could he not know what the new palace looked like? However, seeing that Pai Lupi, the emperor of the Tang dynasty, was trying so hard to be a support, Li Wangyu just pretended that he did not hear anything. Pai Lupi's words caused an uproar among the crowd. The officials were not surprised, but the merchants were all excited. Although the Tang dynasty was open, the status of merchants was not high. In fact, they were very lowly. But now, these mediocre businessmen could actually enter the new palace with His Majesty, the Supreme Emperor of the Tang dynasty. It was a great honor. Some of the older merchants were so excited that they almost fainted. After a while of chaos, Li Wangyu stood up with a smile and said, "Your Majesty, everyone, why don't we enter the new palace first? This subject is also very fearful. I don't know if the new palace can satisfy your Majesty." Pai Lupi laughed, "Very good. We are also looking forward to it. Since that's the case, Zio, lead the way." Li Wangyu smiled and nodded. He gestured to Pai Lupi to follow him. Then, he turned around and walked toward the gate of the Great Ming Palace.